One TV network, ALW.
Mortality and joblessness. What is the future of our people? Does anyone really care? And this is why I am so happy to be here tonight as the guest of Our Voices with Sister Beverly, that we might talk about a solution to these many, many problems. Won't you keep tuned?
Good evening, I'm Bev Smith. Along with Hilton Felton, our piano man, we welcome you to a very special conversation with a very special man, the Honorable Minister of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan. We greet you by saying Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, my sister.
You said who really cares? Let us deal for a moment with African Americans. Do we care about ourselves in 1990?
I think that there are many, many of our people who do care, Beverly, but we don't know how to make our caring substantive for our own relief. We have many leaders that articulate the problem, but we are not working collectively to bring about a solution to the worsening crisis of our people. I think a lot of our people care, but we just lack the guidance and the program to bring about the redress of our grievances.
We will spend a great deal of time this evening talking about the program, but you also mentioned the guidance. Let's look to that for a moment. Have we ever, as we have been in this country as of African descent, had guidance? And if so, in your opinion, where did the guidance come from?
From the time that we were on the plantations, God gave us a natural sense of guidance, even though the slave masters never allowed our mothers and fathers to learn to read or write. But there's something about the nature of the human being. When we saw the change of seasons, the night pass into day and the day pass into night, our mothers and fathers knew that a change would come. And so many of our slave parents couldn't talk to us straight out, so they put little hints in spirituals. So we got a spiritual like Deep River. My home is over Jordan. I want to cross over into campground. Oh, don't you want to go where? To that promised land where all is peace. Let's steal away. We can't walk away. We can't run away. Let's steal away home.
Sending a message.
Sending a message.
As we look at, and as I said, we're going to spend a lot of time hearing what you have to say. As we look at the African American community, who sends a message today? Because whoever it is, are they sending the message loud enough?
You know, God has so wonderfully blessed us with many men and women to send us messages. So many, like Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. But every time, Sister Beverly, we got somebody to give us a message that would amend the condition that 400 years of slavery imposed upon us. Those in power, fearing that message and the messenger and our possible unity around that message, did something to that message and that messenger. And this is why, Sister Beverly, we have never had any continuity of struggle. We always seem to be going back over the same ground again.
We're talking about the message being stopped and the messenger. He also mentioned fear. Time for a break. When we come back, what is this fear the white man has for the African American? And what is the message? And are we hearing it today? And also, we want you to get involved when you dial 1-800-344-BETV. 1-800-344-BETV. If you are in Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, area code 202-636-2060. That's 202-636-2060. Now, when we come back, we'll pick up on why they fear us, and we'll let you talk to the Honorable Minister of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan. The state of Africans who are here in America, that's our topic tonight, with the Honorable Minister from the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's take the gloves off and get right to it. You mentioned fear. What is there to fear? Why are whites afraid of us?
Whenever you've done wrong and you've deceived the person, there's always a fear of being discovered and uncovered. Whenever you have oppressed a people, you're always afraid that one day the oppressed will rise and become the oppressor. So here we are, black people in America, increasing in very large numbers. And according to the scriptures, Pharaoh feared the multiplication of the children of Israel. And his words were, "Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. Join on to an enemy of ours, and remember our evil done to them, and come against us." White people put their mind on us. They don't see us as a forgiving and loving people. They can only judge us by what they know they would do if this were done to them by us.
But the interesting thing about African Americans is that we have never at any time demonstrated the kind of anger toward them that they are fearful of. If we can be accused of anything, then the accusation should be that we demonstrate our anger against each other. I should be the fearful one. Black on black crime is at an all-time high. What the heck are they afraid of?
Again, they don't mind black on black crime, because as long as we are attacking each other, they feel safe. When we come into order and peace and discipline and love and unity, then they become intensely afraid, because that guilt comes right back up. They feel it is owed to them, and therefore why shouldn't we punish them as they punished us?
You use the term owed to them. Recently, I've been reading a lot about you because you have made some statements about what you think is owed to us as a result of what you call our Holocaust in America. What is owed to us?
You know, it's very interesting when we talk about a black Holocaust and we try to get black people to remember what has happened to us. That's called hatred. When Jewish persons keep talking about what Hitler did to them, that's called remembering, so it will never happen again. Many of our scholars estimate that in the Middle Passage from Africa to America, we lost in the neighborhood of 100 million black lives. The soil of America is soaked with the blood of our fathers. So when we start talking about what is owed to us, we have to consider the 100 million lives that were lost in the Middle Passage. We have to consider 300 years of chattel slavery. We have to consider the damage that was done to our psyche, to our minds, by taking away from us our names, our language, our culture, our religion, our God. And as you mentioned, Sister Beverly, you and I should be the ones fearful because of the black on black crime. But we were systematically taught in this society to hate the blackness of our skin, to hate our African origin, to think of ourselves as nothing. So as Jesus said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if I think I'm nothing and I hate myself and my origin, then when I look at you, I see an extension of myself. Therefore, I'm bitter towards you and I strike out towards you. But all these years, we have been taught just the opposite about white people. We've been taught to love them, to forgive them. We've been given an image of our Savior, Jesus Christ, and that image is white. although the description of Jesus in the Bible is quite the contrary. So we have been taught all our lives to look up to white, to idolize white, even to worship white. And so when they did that recent story on television where they asked a young black child to pick up the doll
baby, yes,
that they would admire, she picked up the white doll. It is because we have been made to be and to love other than ourselves and to hate ourselves. All of this is a part of our Holocaust. And when Abraham Lincoln let us go, and I put that in quotes, and the 13th Amendment struck down involuntary slavery, the way our minds had been fixed, we couldn't do anything but go right back to the same slave master and volunteer to be a slave.
But this is 1990, before we go to the phones, Minister Farrakhan. In the 60s, in the 70s, we had what could be called a revolution of sorts. In the 50s, we had the writings of Malcolm X. We had the emergence of the Honorable Minister Elijah Muhammad, who you followed. We had Dr. Martin Luther King. We had Stokely Carmichael yelling, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." We had organizations like the Urban League funding grants in communities to work on projects for self-esteem. You mean in 1990, we don't feel good about who we are? Why not?
Because, Sister Beverly, when Dr. King was assassinated and 100 cities went up in smoke, white folk began to study us, and they studied why we acted on one accord without any leader, no conspiracy. What brought this about? And they found that it was television. It was black programming, pardon me. It was like Black Journal, Black on Black. All of these black programs, Soul, were on television. And if you notice, since the late 60s and early 70s, every one of these black programs have been taken off the air, and the language has changed. We are no longer black and Hispanic. We are the minority, the underclass. You see? So we are relegated now to an inferior numerical status, an underclass, and these are code words to keep us from using the term black, which we rallied around in the 60s.
You're saying then it is deliberate. But then
Absolutely.
If it is deliberate, and there are those among us who are wise enough to see the signs, why isn't there some attempt? I mean, it isn't as if we don't know what the enemy is all about. We have studied the enemy, some of us, from our breast as we suckle them. So why is it we are buying into the plan?
You know, some of our leaders who, after the Civil Rights Bill of 64 and 65 and the Voting Rights Bill of, I think it's 66 or 67, many of our black intellectuals were so happy that we could go into places among white people that we never went before. We didn't pay attention to the critical era of writing our history. And so right while we were looking, Dr. King was distilled to one sentence, "I have a dream." Malcolm X was distilled to one phrase, "By any means necessary." And our history was being reversed, and now children are growing up in high schools in America feeling that we don't have anything to struggle for. We have already attained the promised land. Again, don't forget the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover, where that man and the government of the United States purposely set out to undermine, discredit, destroy black leaders, black organizations, and put us one against the other. And so in the 60s and 70s, we've seen the destruction of all of our black organizations, all of our black leaders, and unfortunately today, we only have two remaining national voices for the hurt of our people. One is Jesse Jackson, and the other is Louis Farrakhan.
Let's take a call. Good evening. Thank you for being out there. You're on Our Voices. I need your first name and where you're calling from.
Yes, Bev. This is Ferris calling from Maywood, Illinois.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I have a question for the minister. I'd like to know with all the atrocities that have plagued black folks, black men and women throughout the centuries, can he see any signs of retribution, not by the hands of blacks toward mankind, but even by with nature? Is there any forms of retribution that he can see in the near future that we can live to see?
You're living in it, my dear brother, right now. God is not unjust. Even though one white president said he trembled for his country when he reflected that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, our illustrious leader and teacher, taught us that whenever a nation's evil outweighed its good, there are forces in the universe itself that will remove that nation, that government, that people. And so here we are in America. Look all around you. Look at the natural plagues and the natural disasters that are afflicting America. You will see these natural disasters increase in intensity. And not only will you see the increase of natural disasters, God has set his hand against the economy of America. She's weakening all the time. And around her, the neighboring nations are turning against America, even as they turned against ancient Babylon.
But will the voices of the oppressed in America be heard? That's the question.
There is no question that the voices of the oppressed will be heard. In fact, the voice of this brother that speaks for the hurt and pain of our people is being heard in spite of the fact that they've called me everything other than what I am. Look how God is blessing us to overcome.
We'll go to a break, and when we return, we'll find out what they've been calling him and what he's been calling them right after this. As we led into the break, Minister Farrakhan said they've called me everything but a child of God. They have. They've called you racist. They've called you anti-Semitic. They've called you a separatist. They've called you a man who practices and preaches hatred. What are you?
I'm a Muslim. And a Muslim is one who believes in obeying the will of God. And I guess you could say I'm a Christian too, because to be a Christian is to be crystallized into oneness with God, following the example of Jesus Christ. As a Muslim, we believe in all of the prophets and we believe in all of the scriptures brought by the prophets. But why do they call me these names? When a man appears with a message in his mouth that can change the condition of a people, the oppressor fears the man and the message. If they can color the man with an evil stroke, then the people will pay no attention to his message. So they call me a racist. But what is a racist? If we look at the word race and we look at the suffix ist, that suffix tells us the degree of commitment and dedication of the person involved to the main word. So if I play the violin and I become proficient at it, dedicate my life to it, you call me a violinist. And if I give my life to art and become great at it, you call me an artist, a physicist, a chemist. Well, if I love my people... So are you saying
you're a racist?
I'm saying in the positive sense that I love my people.
Let's take a call. Good evening. Thank you for being out there. You're on Our Voices. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Helen. I'm calling from Portsmouth, Virginia. And I want to say hello to your guest tonight.
Hello.
What I would like to say is that I have a solution to the problem. I think that all the black people that have abandoned their neighborhoods and, you know, been brainwashed, just sort of like have a black amnesty and come on back to the neighborhoods and help the oppressed blacks, the blackness down. And what happened when some of the black people got a little bit on their feet and making a little bit of money, they wanted to turn white. And that didn't work. Now they're all embarrassed because of this generational drug. But they're to blame for that. So what I suggest is that, you know, just come on back to your neighborhood. We're going to have a black amnesty. Just come on back, say, I'm sorry, I made a big mistake. Just come on back and just help our neighborhoods. I even had a supervisor tell me one time when she got on her feet, I would never go back to this black neighborhood. Now, isn't that something for a black person to say they have gotten on their feet? You know, this is what caused these young people wild like they are now.
Okay,
and, you know,
let's get his response. In all fairness to the caller, if every black person in America went back to the black community, whatever the black community is, would that help the problem?
I think that the black community is bereft of positive role models. Most of those who make it, and I put that in quotes, because many who appear to make it are only about 3 paychecks away from the condition they just left.
One paycheck,
so,
one paycheck.
But what we do need is our professional people. Their skills and expertise needs to come back home to lift our people up.
But are we receptive when we come back? Because the in-house fighting among us is unbelievable. And we carry our fights to the streets, unlike most marriages where the arguments are contained in the house. We spill out in the streets. Are we ready to open our arms for each other? Because some of us are so angry that if I knock on your door and say, Brother Farrakhan, I'm here to help you, you will attack me because I don't speak like you. I don't look like you. I'm darker than you. I'm lighter than you. I'm in this sorority. You're in that fraternity. Stop me if I
so
go
Sister
too
Beverly,
far.
no, but what you're pointing out is the horrible condition of our Holocaust. And that's why the message that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought to us is a message that cleanses, purifies, straightens up this kind of mentality and makes us accept ourselves and accept the brilliance among us for what it is, because we need it. But we can't just bring black people back, as Sister said, bring them back into the ghetto and we just have an amnesty. That, I mean, that's a beautiful sentiment.
But it won't work.
But we have to teach our people, both those who have left the ghetto and those who remain, that we can be acceptable to ourselves.
You have said that we can be acceptable to the point that if the United States gives us money, reparations, that we can take that money, find us a place, either in the United States or Africa, separate ourselves from America, and do well together. Is that realistic?
It's more realistic than integration. We've tried this hypocritical trick called integration. But in reality, Sister Beverly, black people have been separated ever since we've been in this country. That form of separation was called segregation, which is a forced separation by a superior on an inferior. But even under segregation in the South, black people had our own bus companies, our own hotels, motels, restaurants, you name it, we had it. But the moment integration came, the black economy in the South broke apart. And now we don't have any of those things. And worst of all, we don't have what is called integration. So now, what is the solution to the problem? Welfare is given to a people to what we call subsidize them. My mom was a welfare recipient. I can't knock it. My mother used it with wisdom and discretion. And with that welfare, that black mother of mine went to work sometimes cleaning white folks' floors, but she was a magnificent seamstress, and so she would sew at night, and she put my brother and myself into music school.
But
welfare had its value.
But wouldn't reparations be considered welfare also?
No, welfare has a different motivation. Everywhere America has gone, she has taken indigenous native people, put them on what they call the dole, which weakens them spiritually, morally, and makes them totally dependent on America. This is the problem in the Philippines, in the Far East. This is the problem with black people in America. This is a problem everywhere in the world where you're trying to suppress and oppress people. Reparation is a form of justice, recognizing that we've done something wrong to a people and we want to do something to repair the damage.
All right, what would we do with it though? If it is possible to do what you say, hypothetically, to take, because I'm not sure that we don't have as much right to this soil called America as anyone else. We have designed it, we have saved it, we have shed our blood for it. So why then should we give in? Why shouldn't we say, we fought, we died, we created lights, we created souls, we gave you blood plasma, we gave you the light, but why should we not say we are Americans?
Well, you know, I heard Malcolm once say, you know, a cat can have kittens in an oven, but that doesn't make them biscuits. You know, you can be born in America, that doesn't make you an American.
What does?
You
Color?
know, no. It's the rights and privileges of an American. The real definition of American, according to their dictionary, is one of European descent, not belonging to the Aboriginal people. So from the very definition, we were left out of it. And certainly when the founding fathers said we the people, they didn't mean we us folk. They meant we them folk. Now here we are trying to fit in a house. And you're right, Beverly. We have as much right to this, in fact, more right to this than white folk themselves. I'm not saying that all black people should just pack up and go, but reparations means not just money, but land into which we can go to build a real future for ourselves and our people.
How, Minister Farrakhan, are you going to get white folks to give black folks money? Because and that's exactly what we're talking about. Here's money for the pain and suffering that I've caused you. In order to do that, the whites who are in the power structure, not all whites, controlling whites, are going to have to admit several things. One, systematically, they've discriminated against us. Two, they've discriminated against us to the point of death. Now, they are not even willing to admit during the month of February, which is Black History Month, that we have even played a historical part in this country. How are you going to get them to admit that they were racist to the point that they'll give us money?
Of course, the President Johnson had what is called the Kerner Commission. They have already admitted it. It's a historical fact. They have written it, published it, it's in their libraries.
But the Supreme Court has pushed that back. The Supreme Court has said during the Reagan administration, that's not so. We don't need affirmative action. Look at the court's decisions. We don't need to do that. And the attitude of the average white American is that we have already bent over backwards for you folks. You are dumb, stupid, illiterate, don't want to work, kill each other, you shouldn't live in the community, and we have done enough for you.
Well, of course, sister, you know, the condition of black people is such. There's only two alternatives. Integration now is a physical impossibility. So either you separate us or you annihilate us. Now, the annihilation process is going on right now as we speak. How long do you think black folk are going to take this kind of treatment? And if in the twinkling of an eye in Eastern Europe, people rose up and overturned an existing government in a matter of a week or two, what do you think will happen when 30 million people decide, look, we've had enough, we're not going to take this anymore, either America does justice by us or the country goes up?
We'll take a break.
Which way we're going?
That's what I want to know.
Separation or annihilation?
Can we still listen to what you have to say right after this? We're continuing our conversation with the Honorable Minister from the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. And remember, the lines are open and you can join in when you dial 1-800-344-BETV. A curious thing happens to a man when he goes to prison, and I have been dying to find out what it is you do. When a man in jail is exposed to the Nation of Islam, when the brothers in prison who are Muslim talk to the young men in prison, something happens to them. It is a physical change, and everyone out there watching knows what I mean. You can tell the man is different. When the outstanding representative from the Nation of Islam in Washington, D.C., Minister Muhammad, went out to the communities with a few Muslim brothers, the drug pushers left. What are you able to do? What's the magic?
It's not magic at all. It's just the knowledge that we have of who and what we're dealing with. Black people aren't really criminals by nature. They're criminals by circumstance. When they get into prison, they have a chance to be to themselves and to think. And when they're in that state, we introduce them to the knowledge of themselves. Once a person is turned on to self-knowledge, then they begin to take on the virtue of learning. Malcolm X is a perfect example. Malcolm, as you know, was a pimp, a hustler, a bank robber. He left school when he was in the 8th grade, and he looked like most young blacks out there tonight, without hope, in despair. But when he heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it quickened in him the spark of self. And that man read everything in the prison library and came out, and there was not one scholar that debated Malcolm who could defeat him. And I suggest to you that those brothers and sisters in prison, when they're exposed to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it makes the difference.
But do I have to be, because I have been exposed, but I'm a Baptist, do I have to give up my religion to embrace a philosophy that I may concur with?
Not at all. You know, we're not saying that people should be converted. What we're saying is that people must be taught. And once you understand that the faith that you have and the faith that I have and the faith that someone else has, it's the same basic faith given to us by God, not from the Bible, not from the Quran, but God has given us this faith by nature. So what happens is that faith needs to be fed and evolved so that we become men and women of faith. Then we can do that which people say is impossible.
All right, I want to give you an impossible task, and we want to be specific. I am extremely fearful that we are going to lose an entire generation of young African American men. Quote the statistics, I'll have to. 1 out of 4. We are looking at a very violent young man, angry, eating his own flesh, turning on his mothers, his grandmothers, his sisters, his brothers, turning on himself. Now, what would you do? What is your plan? How is your plan any different than anyone else's plan? How would you get at this young brother?
You know, we are exceedingly successful. Dr. Alim here in Washington can go into any of the high schools, and we can go into prisons, as I go into prisons, some of the most unruly of our people. Inside of a few minutes, they are disciplined at attention. I was taken on what is called death row among young black men who don't have any chance of parole. Their whole life is to be spent behind bars. And the warden of that prison did not want me to go in behind the bars. I said, I have to go in and talk to them. He said, well, you're taking a great chance. We went inside. Those men sat down around me, and within 15 or 20 minutes, you could see light and life coming into their faces. And I called the guards. I said, come and look at these that you call animals. These are human beings. Now, these young people that you're talking about, who are cold and violent and brutal, that is the fruit that we have produced.
Then we're to blame.
I don't say we're to blame. I say it is the natural process when you and I have hoped for freedom and longed for freedom, you have to have a generation that is strong enough to fulfill that hope. So fulfillment doesn't look like hope. And this generation is violent because we live in a violent time. This generation rejects the education because the education is unfit for them.
Right,
they reject religion, they reject their parents, because God does not want this generation feeding from the same garbage that we have been fed and that we are trying to feed them.
I have a problem with that, because education, as I've said many times, has never been directed at us. Yet we survived and we were educated without turning on each other. We didn't have programs, but we fed each other, we clothed each other, we were able to stick with each other when it was a much more fearful world in terms of our own individual safety. Walking across the street in a community that was predominantly white, for you as a black man, and lifting your head toward a white woman could get you killed, castrated. So now the young black man does not have that to be concerned about. He doesn't have that kind of fear. Why is he giving up everything that blacks before him fought so hard to do? Where is the missing link?
The missing link is the lack of continuity of knowledge that can continue the struggle. Those young men out there are the greatest generation that we have ever produced. But they're not going to listen to the sob story of mom or dad or teacher or preacher or politician. They're born to hear the word that Farrakhan is preaching from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Are you saying you're the only word out there? Earlier you said it was just you and Jesse Jackson. And then you said earlier also that there were lots of voices. Are you saying that the only real voices out there in the African American community is your voice and Jesse Jackson? Then what does that do to all the other leadership?
Well, look, sister, I'm telling you, and if you walk with us through the ghetto, our children are not listening to anybody. They're not listening to Jesse. They're listening to Farrakhan. And that's what's happening in America today. It is true. There are many voices, but there's only one that black people are listening to. Why? Not because of the way I part my hair, but it's because of the message that I have that will affect black people positively.
What is your message? What do you say to us that hasn't been already said? Bear with me a moment.
Sure.
We've been told that we are inheritors of the thrones, kings and queens. We know our history, some of us. And when we have an opportunity to talk about it, we remind ourselves what we have been able to do under unbelievable conditions. So what do you say that will make us rise above what we already know and do something with ourselves, survive?
You've heard the message, and maybe you have internalized that message. One of the mistakes that we've made is we think that our children have heard that message. But our children have really not heard that message, and they're crying out for that message. And when that message is given to them, they respond. They are coming into the mosques literally by the hundreds. Literally by the hundreds.
Then let me stop you for a moment. Then that suggests then that you're the only place that they can go to hear the truth. Then you're saying that black leadership is a deficit, that the black press has not fulfilled their needs. Are you even saying that maybe the black church has not done what it's supposed to be if they're coming to you?
There's a combination of all of those things. The black press is possibly our greatest friend, but the black press is strapped financially. Black people do not support it. Black businesses don't advertise in it. Therefore, black newspapers don't have the wherewithal to send a reporter to actually get the facts. So the black press is actually the slave of the white press. Whatever comes over AP, UPI, and Reuters, that's what the black press prints. So the black media is stunted. The black church in order to come into the 21st century, they have to preach a revived message. The black church has been the instrument that white folk have used to opiate, to make black folk acquiesce to white tutelage. Young people are not going to the church, they're running away from the church. And that's why I'm in all the major cities talking to the pastors, trying to help the pastors to revive that message, the true message of the gospel, so that together there won't be just one voice, Farrakhan, as a student of Elijah Muhammad, and all of those voices that come out from me, but all of us can speak with the same voice and be of one mind and lift our people together.
We'll take a break. When we return, let's talk politics. And let's talk politics with you. Let's talk about the Democrats, the Republicans, what they didn't do for Jesse Jackson, and why we're not voting.
Be counted. Join us on Our Voices, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, only on BET.
We're continuing our conversation with Minister Louis Farrakhan. I've been seeing you everywhere. You have been on every major network. I'm impressed. You have been on every talk show. You've been looking like a politician. Are you thinking about running for office?
Never. I'm a spiritual man, and I love the spiritual work. I came here to Washington at the invitation of the Washington Post and the Washington Times at an editorial board meeting. Surprising to me what they did with my words. The next day, I then became somewhat of...
what did they do to your words? Didn't you say you'd like for us to go back to Africa? Did they misquote you?
No, they did not. But they didn't tell it exactly like I said it. I said that we need reparations first. We have a stake here, and we haven't given up our stake there. We want dual citizenship. I was talking about first letting the prisoners go. Since we can reform them, and America is spending from $20,000 to $35,000 per inmate, which is an awful lot of money, then give us the prisoners. Since you can't rehabilitate them, don't have the desire, let us do that. And let us ask our brothers and sisters in Africa to give us territory.
Are they willing?
I believe that Africa should be willing. For some of our African brothers help to sell us into this condition, so some of our African brothers have a responsibility to help us get out of this.
So you are not politicking. You are talking through the media so that what you said at that editorial board meeting can be clarified?
No, what I said at that editorial board meeting for the most part was very clear, and they brought it out much as I said it. But I feel that black America needs to know me. White America needs to know me, not as an anti-Semite, a bigot, a racist, but as a concerned human being, concerned primarily with the plight of black people. And I'm hoping that in our last discourse, we didn't give the impression that blacks are at fault for our condition, but as black people, we have to take the responsibility now for our own actions. Yes, white people put us in this condition, but we are responsible to help get ourselves out.
Do we even know that? Because most of the time, when I say on the air, if your child gets pregnant, it's your fault. If your boy gets in trouble, why didn't you know where he was? If your kid can't read, why isn't it your fault? People get upset. Do we know we have some responsibility?
I think we know we do have responsibility, but we should never forget the hidden hand that has always created the conditions that allow us to destroy ourselves.
And we're through for the night. We thank you for joining us. He said, Minister Farrakhan, that he wanted us to get to know him. We hope you have on Our Voices. Until the next time, God bless you. Stand up.
Good evening from Washington. Minister Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, is sending a new message. After years of self-imposed silence, Farrakhan is thundering forward with radical new plans to save the poor and working-class black community. He's often been characterized as a racist and anti-Semite. He wishes to end the bitter antagonism that exists between himself and some Jewish organizations. All this seems to indicate that Minister Farrakhan is hoping to play a more prominent role in national politics. Is that true?
First, I'd like to say that it's not the black and white world of Louis Farrakhan.
I didn't write that.
I know, but whoever did, it's a black and white world created by white people when they brought our fathers into slavery, segregated us, and kept us in a separate status and station until this very moment.
Why have you been quiet, though? Why are you now coming forth? Where have you been?
I've been working very hard in the black community, trying to raise the level of consciousness of our people.
But I mean, is this a campaign now, an assertive campaign to come forward?
Well, sir, looking at the statistics, the terrible condition that black people are in, with 1/4 of our young people in prison, either on supervision or under parole, and the infant mortality rate as high as it is, and black unemployment increasing, something has to be said, something has to be done. So I'm out here now appealing to the government and to black people and to white people of goodwill that we have to sit down and come up with a just solution to this problem.
Why were you silent?
I was never silent.
Well, you stopped media appearances, right?
No, the media purposely did not call me to be on the media, and when they did, I always felt it was for a purpose other than exposing my own ideas. And so I refused, particularly during the second time that Jesse Jackson was running for president.
Because you felt it would take away from that
That's
campaign.
right.
Are you still a supporter of his?
Oh, of course.
And would support him if he ran in '92?
I can't say that, because I don't know whether he will run.
But if he did
hasn't
run?
said. I can't say just yet.
So you're not supporting him? I mean, I asked if you were supporting him, you said yes, and then...
I support him as a person, as a human being, as a man who struggles for the good of his people.
You're not endorsing him?
No, not at this time.
How did the stridency, in your opinion, and there was stridency surrounding Farrakhan, there still is, begin? Why did it begin?
Well, the conditions of black people are not exactly passive and peaceful.
No, but
and
there have
good.
been many black leaders. I knew many speaking out. Malcolm X, I knew Malcolm X. I knew his stridency, and I knew Martin Luther King very well. But they didn't start on a discord. You seem to start on a discord. Why?
I beg your pardon.
You don't think so?
No, of course. There was discord with Malcolm. There was discord with Martin. There was discord with W.E.B. Du Bois. Everybody that attempts to tackle the problems between black and white don't start peacefully. They start with the discord trying to produce harmony.
Then maybe the anti-Semitism got off on the wrong rung. Or the right, was it your intention? How did that start?
It started with my trying to protect Jesse Jackson after 100 real threats were against his life. And I decided I wanted to dialogue with Jews because I felt that Jews, through the Anti-Defamation League, were sending certain information to the media negative about Reverend Jackson, and it could have created an atmosphere into which the brother could have been assassinated. I did not want to see another Martin Luther King, and so I stood up and asked for the dialogue. And as a result of that, I was called a black Hitler. I took umbrage at that remark, and then the roller coaster ride began.
And once on, keeps rolling, or kept rolling.
We hope that the Jews of goodwill, as some of them have been sitting down with us, we will sit down with them and continue the process of dialogue.
As a minister of the faith, you would love all people, would you not?
As a minister of faith, you would love to love all people. But the scripture says you can't serve two masters. You have to love one and hate the other. You can't serve God and mammon too. One has to be worthy of love. And to be worthy of love and to engender love is to obey the will of God, and that is what produces love in us for one another.
Does your faith believe that all people are created equal?
When you say created equal, what do you mean, sir?
That all babies are equal under the law, that they are entitled to health and good fellowship, that they are entitled to love and good feelings, that they are entitled to a life that is their own. White,
Well,
black,
of course,
yellow,
all
Jewish.
babies are born equal. The process is equal.
And they
Their
deserve
mothers carry them 9 months with fainting and pain, and the pain for a white woman, a black woman, a brown woman, they're all the same. However, what stimulus goes into the makeup of that white child, that black child, that brown child after the child is born? What kind of environment will these children grow up into? And according to what we are hearing and reading, the black child is put into an environment that sentences the black child to a ghetto life. And they are saying, according to their statistics, that blacks will never, at the present rate, reach parity with whites.
Now, do you feel the same about Jews who had that ghetto life in England, Irish who had potato and famine in Ireland, Chinese with too many in the families, and hardship in China? Do you feel the same about them?
They used a certain law and principle to lift themselves from their condition, and we applaud that. We can't say that the Jews are suffering in America, not in Mexico, not in England, not in France. Nowhere where Jews are today, except in Russia, do we find Jews suffering. But black folk in America, blacks in the Caribbean, blacks in Africa are suffering. And we need to understand the principles that others have used and use those same principles to get ourselves up out of this condition.
Why should there be any discord between Jews and blacks, since both have seen prejudice face up through a lot of their lives, and they've always been intersupportive of each other? Jews were major supporters of the civil rights movement.
As long as our interests converged, blacks and Jews always have worked together.
Always.
But when the interests of blacks and Jews were diametrically opposed, Jews followed their self-interest.
Example.
And of course, in the Baki decision, you know, Jews did not follow the thinking of blacks in the Baki decision.
Many Jews supported that.
Well,
support, you mean affirmative action?
The quotas. Jews have always fought against quotas. Blacks wanted quotas. So whenever our interests didn't converge, we followed our self-interest.
But there was some political difference. They weren't racial differences. Those weren't Jews saying, we may have a difference of quota, therefore I hate blacks.
Well, neither are we saying.
Right. So then why should there be any discord between the Jew and the black?
Well, look, the relationship between blacks and Jews is not the best relationship. It has not been. Otherwise, blacks and Jews would not be meeting around the nation trying to find out what went wrong with the relationship. Louis Farrakhan did not end the relationship between blacks and Jews, but after the death of Martin Luther King and the breakup of the civil rights movement, many Jews who were the strong supporters of the civil rights movement and civil rights organizations began to follow their own concerns, and the civil rights organizations began to die from lack of attention, lack of support from within. And so after Farrakhan began to speak and we got into the black Jewish controversy, then the Jews began to come back to blacks to sit down and dialogue to say,
you think you've inspired a reunity?
I think we've inspired a dialogue, and that is good. We're not against blacks and Jews having a relationship, but what we want is a new relationship, not a relationship structured on a master-slave kind of relationship. We want a relationship structured on equity and justice, based on mutual respect.
We'll be right back with Minister Louis Farrakhan. We've got other bases to touch, and we'll take your phone calls too. Siskel and Ebert still to come. 1 week from tonight in New York, an hour with Governor Mario Cuomo. Don't go away. Our guest is Minister Louis Farrakhan. We'll be taking your calls in a while. I want to touch some other bases. What did you think of what happened in Israel today? They overthrew the conservative government, overthrew peacefully in the Knesset, and installed the more liberal who are looking to sit down with the Palestinians.
Well, I think it may be a step in the right direction. I was shocked to see the other day that Mr. Baker was there and there were signs out calling Mr. Baker an anti-Semite. And of course, it reminded me of picket signs around my venues wherever I go to speak. And since Mandela has embraced Arafat, there are those that are calling Mandela anti-Semitic. And I think that what those Jewish leaders need to do, we really need to be careful of how we use words, because anti-Semitic today means if you're critical of Israel, you become an anti-Semite. And in today's paper, here is a brilliant Jewish writer who called Zionism actually Satanism.
Who is that?
I can't recall his name, but it's in the Chicago Sun-Times today.
Israel's a democracy. They debate it all the time. They threw out the leadership today and put in a new one.
And again, in the paper today, it said that, of course, Israel has no state religion. So Judaism is not the state religion of Israel. Coming right back to what I said 5 years ago when they criticized me, saying I was talking about Judaism. I never mentioned Judaism, and now, today, they're saying Judaism is not the state religion of Israel.
I think
so Farrakhan is really not an anti-Semite.
We might clear it up with a simple question.
Sure.
How do you feel about Jews?
Now, you know, there are many Jews that I admire and greatly respect. Jews have done marvelously well coming from the conditions that they've come from. My problem is not with the Jews that have done marvelously well and are moral and righteous. Our problem is with those who feel somehow threatened by Louis Farrakhan, by a black man who is not controlled by white people, who speaks the truth as he sees it and believes it for the good of our people.
But you could say that about Chinese and Irish and Italian people. You like those who have done very well and are maybe angry with those.
Of course.
So what is the separate? Why do Jews keep coming up in the dialogue?
I think it's because if I make a statement or someone asks a question and I answer about Jews, then the Jews become the whole topic. We're here talking about a most serious problem, not the problem of Jews, because Jews are doing fine in America. But here you have 30 to 40 million black people who are called a permanent underclass and who have become the Achilles heel of this nation. And I'm afraid if sincere and serious people don't sit down to map out a just solution to this problem, America might go the way of ancient Egypt, Babylon, and all of those other countries who did not address the problem
You're saying
properly.
revolution?
It could be.
Your thoughts on the Salman Rushdie affair?
Well, I think personally that, you know, words, when a person uses words to condemn, the Quran teaches us to argue with them in the best manner. And if Salman Rushdie used words, why should someone use bullets? Use words to condemn words. Use a stronger argument to defeat a weaker argument.
So you don't
No.
join those who threaten him?
No.
Let's take some calls for Louis Farrakhan. Los Angeles, hello.
Yes, Mr. Farrakhan, my question is to you. Why do you feel that blacks are the superior race?
On the contrary, blacks in America have been in quite an inferior position and condition, and we remain that way today. But what you think as a superior is that your own scholars admit that white people come from black people. And that means that if we can produce you and you cannot produce us, then genetically we are superior in that we are your producer, not you
White
ours.
people come from black people?
Oh, yes, sir. We are your father and your mother, and that is a fact.
And where do black people come from?
We come from the originator of the heavens and the earth.
Who is black?
Huh?
He is black, or she is black.
Oh, I don't say the color of the originator.
Well, why would color make any difference anyway?
Well, you all have made it a difference. It didn't make a difference until white folk made it a difference.
Cary, South Carolina, hello.
Yes, Mr. Farrakhan, will you take back your comments and refute that Judaism is a gutter religion?
I never said that. I never said Judaism was a gutter religion. I said that the practice of Israel was dirty toward the Palestinians, and it remains that way today.
That was a political statement about the actions of a government.
That's right.
Not about a people.
That's right.
And what did you say about Hitler, so we could clear that? You did not call him a great man?
Yes, I did.
You did call him great.
I said Hitler was great, but I said he was wickedly great. Now, white people who study the dictionary, after all, English is not my language. You all taught me English, and you know that great is an adjective. It does not necessarily mean good. except in a colloquial sense. They had a great earthquake down in Mexico in 1985, 8.1 on the Richter scale. It's called great, but it wasn't good.
The devil is great.
Yes, but not good.
We'll be right back with Minister Louis Farrakhan and more of your phone calls on Larry King Live. Siskel and Ebert will forecast the Oscars. That's ahead. Don't go away. With Minister Farrakhan, do you still favor a separate black state?
I think that blacks are already separate, and the condition is so terrible that the Kerner Commission said that if by 1985 meaningful integration had not come about, and in the cities there was approximately 21.5 million people, which they projected it would be, that integration would be totally impossible. And now what the Kerner Commission predicted has come to pass. There are over 21 million blacks in the ghettos. We are poorer, sicker, dying, and destroyed with drugs and crime. So there are only two alternatives. How is America going to deal with blacks since we can't now be integrated? Either we are separated or annihilated. And the annihilation part is a very dangerous, dangerous probability. I think we ought to talk about separation.
You don't think there's a concentrated effort to annihilate, did you?
According to the scriptures, and being Jewish, you know that Pharaoh had a plan against the children of Israel because they were multiplying, and he feared that they might join on to an enemy and come against him. So he said, let's deal wisely with them. And so they came up with a plan to kill all boy babies and spare the female. Now that was the Pharaoh of that day. And what we're looking at in America today is the destruction of the black male, the sparing of the female, but the destruction of the black man.
By whom? Who's the Pharaoh?
I think Mr. Bush is sitting in that seat.
You think Bush is today's Pharaoh?
Oh, yes.
By design?
What do you mean by design?
As that Pharaoh did it
He
by...
was voted into office. He's sitting in that seat.
Charlotte, North Carolina, hello.
Yes, sir. It's apparent, I think, that the drug problem is becoming more of a black problem. And I assume you feel that white people are to blame for this. Shouldn't you in fact be blaming the black and brown people all over the world who are growing drugs and exporting them to this country? Aren't they the ones who are really to blame and not white people for the problem of black people and their incredible dependence and violence concerning drugs?
Thank you for your question. If you study the history, sir, the Dutch East India Company raised the poppies in India, and the Americans and others helped to transport those drugs into China in the Opium Wars. America has been using drugs for a long, long time as a political weapon. And in the black community, drugs has always been used in our community. And we don't bring the drugs in. We don't manufacture the drugs. We don't grow the drugs. 80% of the chemicals used to make the crack are from the United States. They're shipped down into South America and then shipped back into this community. And I think you're wrong, sir. There are between 76 and 87% of the drugs now used in America are used by white people. So you have a very real drug problem, not only in the black community, but it has become the scourge of this nation.
Indianapolis, hello.
I'd be interested to learn if Mr. Farrakhan's educational and employment background, has he ever held an 8-hour day job?
Yes, I did. You know, I grew up as a musician. And when you're a musician, you can make much more money than you can on an 8-hour job. And when I became a Muslim and decided to give up my music, I went to work, working honest in factories and driving trucks and loading trucks and doing all of those menial tasks. And they used to tell me I had too much education for the kinds of jobs that I was being given. So I became a teacher, and I'm working full-time now on the resurrection or the rise of black people. And that's a hard job.
I don't know if the caller was implying that ministerial work is not work. I guess she thinks Billy Graham doesn't work, or the Pope doesn't work. I guess you have to have a real job. We go to Tidewater, Virginia. Hello.
Yeah, Louis, your credentials as a peacemaker are not very good in view of the strife and division that you created in your own black Muslim community. I understand that your group is much smaller than the group headed by the son of Elijah Muhammad, whom you split away from. If you can't promote unity among your own fellow black Muslims, how are you going to promote it among Christians and Jews?
All right, I got to take a break in 30 seconds.
I've got to say that's a very hypocritical thing. Martin Luther pulled away from the Catholic Church, and they pulled away from the Greek Church, and you all have been pulling away from each other for years. How dare you, in that hypocritical way, say that we can't have honest differences? Imam Warithuddin and I have an honest difference, but we are brothers, and we respect each other.
Let's take a break.
That's more than I can say for you.
We'll come back and take some more calls from Minister Louis Farrakhan. Then we'll meet Siskel and Ebert. This is Larry King Live in Washington. Don't go away. In Seattle, Washington. Hello.
Hi, Larry. I wanted to ask, for many years, Martin Luther King and your other black leaders fought for a colorblind society. I was wondering why now do you speak like a bigot towards whites and Jews? And how do you all get your titles of ministers or reverends?
If Dr. Martin Luther King fought for a colorblind society, you all have fought to keep it a society full of racism. Your own Kerner Commission said that the ghetto was produced by white racism, and it is maintained by white institutions, and it is condoned by white society. I would appeal to all who are listening to look at the governments that tumbled down in Eastern Europe so quickly, and no member of the intelligence communities of East or West could predict it. We are sitting on a time bomb here in this country, and those of us of goodwill, those of us who want to sit down and dialogue, let's do so in a hurry and find a solution to a very real problem.
Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Hello.
Good evening, Larry. And first of all, I want to thank you for having the only talk host show worthy of my time and a lot of other people's time.
Thank you.
And my question to Mr. Farrakhan is, what advice would he give the thousands of white Americans like myself who have been discriminated against because of affirmative action?
You know, anytime someone has helped to build your country and has been set at naught, worked for 300 years for no pay, and actually became voluntary servants after they were so-called set free. And here's a present generation of whites who really don't know what happened to us and why we have suffered as we've suffered, but you are not willing to suffer one little bit of privation to see a segment of what you call your own American citizenry come up to par. And that's why we say separation is the answer, because it appears that we will never reconcile our differences as long as you don't want any pain, but you've accepted all that our slave labor has caused you to have.
Washington, D.C., hello.
Yes, the question is, Minister Farrakhan, there are many black people who love and respect and honor the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. One of the problems that they have is the assertion that the white man is the devil. Can you please clarify that for our people? And also, brother, we love you. Keep up the good work. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. You know, the word devil means a wicked person. It has a scientific meaning, which we don't have time to get into tonight. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad raised that name, devil, so that America could see herself in the light of truth and measure herself by the criterion that measures good and evil. And that criterion is the divine law of God. And when America is measured against that criterion and sees herself as she is, then perhaps she will make a change for the better.
Newport Beach, California. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Farrakhan. I support almost everything you stand for. I'd like to know, because of the times I've gone to see you talk and all the hatred that's coming from the outside protesters, do you fear for your life at times?
No, I'm not afraid for my life. I'm more afraid for your life than I am for mine, because America is sitting on a time bomb. The black community can explode. And what good would it do if we shed each other's blood when we have enemies all on the outside of this nation waiting for the fall of America? I think the wise thing to do while there's time is let's sit down and work out an equitable and just solution to this problem.
Kansas City, but you don't worry for personal sake.
No, sir.
But you do have a lot of people around you.
Certainly.
I mean, you're well
so
protected.
does the Pope, so does the President, so does any intelligent person, and you would do well to have some security, too.
You think I should have security?
Of course.
Kansas City, Missouri, hello.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Lewis. Lewis,
Hi.
I love
No, I never think about that. Go ahead.
I like seeing you on Donahue. That was the first time I've really ever was able to hear you. I have one question. What do you think about integrated marriages?
I don't approve of them, but I know that love can transcend color. If it's genuine love, what can we say? But if it is this sick kind of marriage that a black person is running away from self and can't find any root in himself to marry one of his own women or one of your own, fascinated by us, wants to marry us, I don't approve of it. I don't think it's good for race relations.
New Orleans, hello.
Yes. I'd like to say that I've seen the interviews that the Minister Farrakhan did with Phil Donahue, and I was really enlightened as to his beliefs and the way that he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that stuck most in my mind is, how can he sit there and say the things that he says, and one, say that he wants equality for all people, and two, how can he sit there and put himself off as anything else except a racist?
Well, I don't know how he could answer that. It's a rather rhetorical question. You do not consider yourself racist. You don't consider your race superior to another race.
I consider myself a man that is passionately concerned for the pain and suffering of my people. I don't consider that racism, nor would I condone putting another human being at a disadvantage to make my people advantaged.
Wilburn, Massachusetts, hello.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the guest thinks about the origin of the AIDS virus. Does he think that it was here all the time, or does he think it was created by the defense industry and was, as the Washington Post reported about 2 years ago in February, created by the defense...
AIDS.
I do feel, according to what I have read, that it is a manufactured virus. It's not a natural virus. I don't know who, but in an article that's called Who, it says it was manufactured by the World Health Organization right out here in Virginia.
For what purpose?
For the purpose of decimating human beings. And we blacks suffer from this AIDS virus more than anyone else.
Last call, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Hello.
Hi, I would like to ask your guest tonight why it is that he compares his people to the Jews. When the Jews were in the ghettos, they climbed their way out, and now they're integrated into society, although they had prejudice against them.
And we covered that earlier. Of course, the Jews
Well, you know, the Jews climbed their way out. First of all, you've had Moses and all of the prophets. You have an advantage. You have divine guidance. You're looking at a people who were stripped of everything of our own that ties us to our own kith and kin in Africa, and then for 300 years were denied the human right to know, to read, to write, to learn. And 100 years ago, you let us go, and we became Christians, and you educated us, but you never allowed us to get the knowledge of ourselves where we could do for ourselves what the Jews did for themselves. And now that I'm here as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to give that kind of knowledge, you paint me as everything evil. Why? Because you're afraid that black folk will come together and do for themselves what you have done for yours, and you might lose a slave.
Thank you, Minister. Our guest has been Minister Louis Farrakhan. We'll be back with Siskel and Ebert on Larry King Live. Don't go away. Welcome back to Larry King Live. The present, the past, the future, all in the spotlight in Chicago this weekend at the National African American Leadership Summit. Joining us now, the summit's organizer, former NAACP Executive Director Benjamin Chavis, and summit participant, the Nation of Islam's Minister Louis Farrakhan, reason for the summit, Ben?
The reason for this summit, this is our third summit this year, is to promote more operational unity among national African-American organizations and among national African-American leaders. We believe that disunity in the past has impeded our progress, and we are pleased that this third summit in Chicago was one of our most successful. We came out with a 10-point program where we're going to assume the responsibility for the uplift of our community.
Are all the major black organizations participating?
Just about all of them are participating, and we're going to continue to reach out to those that are not yet participating. We are sure, as the future holds, that we'll have all of our black organizations and all of our black leaders together.
What do you make of it?
I think it's probably the best thing that has ever happened to us since our sojourn in America. Our division has been our worst enemy. And the fact that so many of us with different ideologies and philosophies can sit in the same room and dialogue over problems that are bigger than ourselves and our organizations is a great step in the right direction.
Have the elections encouraged you in a more spirit of getting together? The fact that the general perception is you took it on the chin in November?
Well, certainly there's a sense of urgency, but not just in reaction to the election. It is the condition, Larry, of our community. There's pain and misery in many African-American communities throughout the nation. This was before the elections, and certainly after the elections with the Republican takeover of the Congress. The handwriting is on the wall. And we believe, as we discussed at the summit, that African-American leaders, African-American organizations, we're going to have to assume more of the responsibility on our shoulders for the uplift of our people.
You less expectancy from government.
That's right.
You share that?
Yes. The Republican win is like the winds that help the dry bones in the valley to come together.
You're glad of it?
Well, those who expect to live from government are this morning or this evening filled with less hope and more despair. But those of us who understand that the time has arrived for us as black men and women to take the responsibility of freedom and the responsibility of our own communities on our own shoulders, we are filled with greater hope, even though the election may be not to our best liking.
Can that, though, is there a danger that that could increase the cleavage?
No, I think that, which cleavage you speak
between black and white in America?
Well, no, I don't think, if anything, if we can improve the quality of life of African Americans by our efforts, certainly then there's a basis for more equality. The reason why we have black and white tension in America is because of the inequality, because of the deprivation and the degradation that so many of our people are consigned to. We want to stop that.
Do you still see it as a separatist concept? Us against them, we'll do it ourselves, forget it.
Well, I think that in every ethnic and racial community within the context of the United States, each people have had to do something to help themselves separately and then in cooperation with others in government. We have to do the same. In answer to your last question, I believe that the more that we take responsibility for ourselves and our condition on our own shoulders, this has a tendency to make the problem between black and white less stressful than it is at present.
Are you dismayed by an apparent downsiding of the Black Caucus?
Well, certainly we don't...
Mr. Gingrich's idea to not give you any kind of tax funds at all for the caucus.
Well, we disagree with that decision. We have worked very closely with members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and I'm hoping that the caucus members will still be determined to have the caucus, even if they don't get the government funding. We in the African-American community will help fund them. What we are saying is that African-American organizations or African-American institutions that purport to speak and act in our interests must be funded by African-Americans.
Yes. Are you going to, Louis, temper your anger? I mean, you've been certainly in the position, if we talk about black leaders in America and anger, your name would come to mind first. Is that going to be tempered in this new mode of self-reliance in the 90s? We
don't intend to temper truth. Anger, I don't think, is absolutely necessary at all.
How would you describe it, if not anger?
Well, sometimes when one is angry, that anger can be a force if properly directed, toward good. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad caused us to be angry with our treatment, angry with our condition, but he turned that anger into a constructive force against smoking, drinking, excessive sex, and destruction of our families. So anger is bad if it is not utilized in a positive way.
Reverend Chavis, has Minister Farrakhan said things that have bothered you?
No.
Not in the past. I'm talking about the statements that might be perceived as anti-Semitic and like. I'm talking about whether rifts could occur in the black community that could hurt this solidarity.
I do not believe that Mr. Farrakhan is anti-Semitic. And I have learned much over this last year in particular. We've worked very closely together, as I've worked with other African-American leaders. And I think that for us to be pro-black and pro-African-American does not mean that we're anti-white or anti-Semitic or anti-Italian or anti-Greek. We're pro-African-American. And I think sometimes we're misunderstood. And so I stand by my brother.
Can we tonight put it away then? Are we saying publicly that you never intended any anti-Semitism if that's what came of it?
Oh, I'm definitely not anti-Semitic. To be anti-Semitic would be almost anti-myself. The Semitic people are the people from which came the Bible, the Quran. So to be anti-Semitic would be to be anti-Arab,
But you have singled out Jews.
Some. There are some blacks that we would single out for...
and some Irish and some Poles and some Eskimos
certainly.
and some... But why Jews? Why single them out?
Well, if certain members of the Jewish community are exploitive of our condition, I think they should be singled out. But I don't think that the whole family of Jewish people should be condemned for what a few have done.
Do you concur with that?
I concur absolutely. And as Mr. Farrakhan said, there are some African Americans who don't do right. We will have to rebuke them as well as we rebuke any ethnic group, a member of an ethnic group that does not do right. I think it's been very unfair. And that's why I thought the summit is unprecedented. We finally brought our leaders together across the previous lines of division. And brothers and sisters in the community, I don't want to interrupt you, Larry, but I just want to let you know, this is celebrated. The unity between Benjamin Chavis and Louis Farrakhan is celebrated in the African American community.
Do I get a note here correctly of optimism?
Certainly.
Yes, we're going to bring 1 million black men to Washington this coming October.
For what purpose?
To affirm who we are and our resolve to take the responsibility of our own condition and families on our shoulders.
In a march?
We're coming to march in Washington, not necessarily on Washington, but to say to the entire world, we're tired of being pictured as clowns and buffoons and criminals. We are coming to say that we are men and women who are responsible and who intend to show the world that we are just that.
No black women?
Well, this is a march for... And we're not letting the government off the hook.
But why men?
Well, men, as you know, Larry, have to stand up for the family. If you look at what is going on within the African-American community, you know there have been attacks. African-American males have been targeted. And so we have arrived at a position that it's time for black men in America to stand up, straighten up their backs, and to affirm our responsibility for our community and our family. That is not to put black women down.
It's not anti-gender, it's a statement
No, absolutely
for
not. This is an
male.
affirmative.
Yeah.
This is an affirmative move.
We'll take a break, come back, and include your phone calls. Our guests are Reverend Benjamin Chavis and Minister Louis Farrakhan. This is Larry King Live. Don't go away.
See, everybody that say they a leader and they leading, they go the wrong way. We don't need to be, nobody needs to be led the wrong way.
I think all of our leaders have died. The other so-called black leaders, I don't put a lot of faith in them because it seems like they're not for us, that I have nothing in common with them at all besides being black.
We're back. We're going to go to your phone calls for Minister Louis Farrakhan and Reverend Ben Chavis. A couple of quick other things on the march. What if women wanted to march in salute for men or just as supportive of men?
We would like for our women to be supportive of us. In the past, our women have been our leaders, our teachers, our nurses. They have been the bold ones taking the point. We're saying to our women, not that we don't want your support, not that we don't need your support, but it's time for the black man to assert himself and take responsibility for leadership.
But if they come, you're not going to throw them away, right?
No, but
Well,
we are advocating that our women will stay home and the children stay home, and the women will teach the children the value of our unity.
Yeah, see, on this day, it's going to be more than a march. We will have a series of things that women will be doing, that children will be doing, and that men will be doing.
Is this going to be a weekend?
No, we want to come when government is in session. Okay. Because, as I've said, we're not letting the government off the hook. We will be promoting and presenting legislative proposals to help improve the quality of life of our community.
There's a growth of black conservatives in America. Are they invited to your summits?
We are reaching out to the broadest diversity in our community, and black conservatives will be invited to future summits.
Might you ask Judge Clarence Thomas to address the summit?
Well, that's a very good question.
That's why I asked.
Certainly, I believe that, and I have been very critical of Judge Thomas, but in the spirit of unity, in the spirit of summit process, I would not be opposed to the brother coming to the table.
Well, he has said he's been left out. Would you invite him?
There is no voice within our community that would not be welcome. One of the things we've found through the summit is that these diverse views help all of us to refine our own ideas and concepts.
So you would invite him?
I would certainly.
Let's go to some calls for Louis Farrakhan and Benjamin Chavis, Newport Beach, California. Hello.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
Fine.
I have a question for Minister Farrakhan.
Yes,
Mr. Farrakhan, I'm a civil rights activist. I happen to be a Jew as well. One of the things I'm very concerned about is in the battle against racism, I doubt that we can truly move forward when you still embrace bigotry. Let me give you some brief examples.
Quickly.
Thank you, Larry. Hold on a second. In your Nation of Islam final call, you have stated that Zionist agents were responsible for everything from the assassination of President Kennedy right through the World Trade Center bombing. In addition, your minister, Khalid Muhammad, said about Hitler, seemed to be an apologist for Hitler in saying that the way they, and that is Jews... Wait, Larry, please, just let me...
So I'm going to ask you to get right to the point quicker, sir.
Yeah, Larry, just let me finish, please, okay? The way they do everywhere they go, they supplanted, they usurped. They turned around Germany. That's very, very hurtful.
We'll have him answer both points, sir, but I just to set the record straight, you are a Zionist?
How can we move forward?
Paula, are you a Zionist?
Excuse me?
Zionism is a political movement, isn't it?
Larry, I could go on for a half an hour.
I don't want a half hour. You quoted Zionism. I'm just asking you. I just want to clarify. Are you a Zionist?
I'm first and foremost a human being who's a Jew.
Okay, well, are you? Okay, never mind. Are you? You've been critical of Zionists. People tend to take Zionism to mean Judaism.
I don't believe that Zionism is Judaism. Although Judaism is rooted in the Torah, Zionism is a political movement that seeks to fulfill the prophecies that deal with the return of Jews to the Holy Land.
So when you criticize Zionism, you do not mean Jews, per se. You mean that particular aspect. And how about the member of your congregation who praised Hitler?
Well, they accuse me of praising Hitler. And I don't think there is any intelligent black man who can praise Hitler for the evil that Hitler had done.
So if it's been said, you discount it?
Pardon me?
Are you condemning it if it was said by...
It was not said by Brother Khalid, nor by myself. What I said was that Hitler was a great man, but great does not necessarily mean good. The devil is great, but he's not good.
Nairobi, Kenya, hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Good show. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Farrakhan.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, my question is to you for the Mr. Farrakhan and to Chavis.
What's the question?
Yes.
The question is, for a long time we have seen a lot of black leaders, be they from Africa or even in America, go out and wash their linen in public. I think it is time you guys should go back and clean up your linen out there, and then you come back as a stronger, united force than just keep.
What do you make of that, Ben?
Well, I agree with the brother. And in a sense, that's why our summit meetings have been closed. There have been differences. There have been, as he used the term, dirty linen. You should keep that in the family, in the community, but move forward. Larry, I'm very optimistic that we have now crossed the threshold of unity that's unprecedented, and we intend to maintain it. And to the brother in Africa who's calling, we're hoping that our unity here will also extend to Africa and to the Caribbean and around the world. But our focus right now is here in the United States of America.
We'll be right back with our remaining moments with Benjamin Chavis and Louis Farrakhan on Larry King Live. Mario Cuomo tomorrow night, Attorney Donald Ray on Wednesday. Don't go away.
Well, our greatest concern for African Americans is somebody to try to help the young generation that's coming up, the young people, you know. It just seems like they just carried away and they ain't got nobody to really to lead them to carry them the right way.
Jobs. You need good jobs and teaching, and first being taught what to do right and what's wrong.
Family involvement, support and guidance.
There's a lot more programs I think they need to have. I mean, you can come here in the afternoon, late afternoon, you know, you can just see the kids just hanging out, nothing to do, you know. It's a lot of room for improvement.
We're back on Larry King Live, Nashville, Tennessee. Hello.
Hello, Larry. How are you?
Fine.
I hope all is going well. I want to say good evening to your two very distinguished guests.
Good evening.
Well, I would like to say, though, Larry, the issue that's sometimes not dealt with in leadership in our community is accountability in leadership. And I think we need to move in a more positive direction and start focusing more on the potential in our own community. There are a lot of young voices out there. There's a Kwesi Mfume, chairman of the caucus. Dr. Michael Grant's got a book out that's going all over the country right now, Beyond Blame. It's saying, in effect, that we need to focus more of our attention on the mind power in our own community.
Isn't that what they're saying?
That's exactly what we're saying.
Your summit is all about. Hyattsville, Maryland. Hello.
Yes. First, I'd like to say assalamu alaikum to both your guests.
Wa alaikum salam.
I'd like to thank you, Larry King, for having this very important program.
Thank you.
And my question is this. I'd like your guests to assess the government's commitment to integration in light of the recent elections, in light of attacks on voting rights legislation and other civil rights.
This government is not committed to integration? At this late stage, you would think that?
Well, I think the government has shown an inability to create equality. I think the issue.
Has the administration disappointed you?
Well, I believe that the overall electorate in the United States is headed in the wrong direction. But I think the problems in the African American community, Larry, have to be shouldered by us. And I think that if we focus all of our attention on what the government is going to do for us, we lose time.
Do you agree with the firing of Jocelyn Elders?
Well, I think that's between Jocelyn and the president. I do believe, though, that the country is more segregated today than it was during the time of Martin Luther King Jr. And that is saying a lot about the hypocrisy of those who promoted integration while they furthered segregation.
Do you think the O.J. Simpson matter, we only have a short time, hurts the black cause in America at all? So much attention focused on this intermarriage and this killing?
No, I don't think that hurts. But keep in mind, it's the way the media portrays it, Larry. I mean, everybody's hoping that O.J. would get a fair trial. It's almost impossible given all the media attention. But again, one should not take that case and extrapolate back over the African American community. And
you don't think they're doing that? You don't think do you think so?
I don't think that the way that O.J. Simpson is being handled is necessarily good for us. The fact that the young woman in South Carolina could murder her own children and blame it on a black person, and so many bought into that, and so many, few whites have done the same thing. We are tending to look at the black male in particular as criminal. And our motto in Washington is to say that we are not that.
We've just skimmed the surface. We'll do a lot more on this, especially as the year draws to a close and the march occurs. Thanks for joining us. African-American men gather for a words, music, and self-reflection. But is the message of unity possible if the messenger is Louis Farrakhan? We review the Million Man March ahead on Larry King Live.
Now, live from Washington, here's Larry King.
Good evening. Later, a panel discussion of the events of this historic day in Washington. But first, the man who started it all, in fact, first announced it on this program about this march. Was it a success?
Yes, we believe it was a success in terms of numbers, but a success in terms of spirit. I don't believe there ever was a march in Washington where the men were so disciplined, so reflective, so courteous, so loving toward one another. I don't believe there was one incident where the police had to come and take anyone away.
Do we have a count as to how many? Was it a million? Wasn't a million.
Well, Sam Jordan, who is Mayor Barry's man for events, said he thought it was no less than 1,200,000. We were shocked when we heard the figure of 400,000, when they said right before you get to the water, if you feel that it's 189,000, and if you go back from the water to the Washington Monument, that's another 550,000, and then we had all of Pennsylvania Avenue blocked, and then we had some on the other side of 14th Street going toward the Lincoln Memorial, and we had them on all sides, even around the back of the Capitol. So I just think
1,200,000 is more correct than 4.
Yes, definitely.
Anything surprise you today?
Well, to tell you the truth, when I first said 1 million, I saw the number go out of my mouth, and I looked at it, and I said, well, I've got to chase it because I've said it, but I thought I was inspired to say it, and I was very, very thankful to Almighty God that we had such a great number today.
You said you didn't want it to happen. How did this become the Farrakhan March?
Well, I think from the very beginning, we called it, and we had an ecumenical approach. We invited the Reverend Jackson. We invited Christian clergymen from around the nation. There was some doubt as to the ecumenicity of it, what the moral tone of it would be. Would it be all-inclusive? And when we satisfied most that that's exactly what we intended, we began to pull a lot of folk on board. And some rejected the poster with my picture on it. And I said, that's no problem. If it bothers you, you take it off.
Did you not want it to be the Farrakhan March?
No, I wanted it to be a march that all of us could present ourselves on a platform that left us all comfortable.
How do you feel when you hear so many people, including the President of the United States, who didn't mention you by name, but we all know what he was referring to, say, I support the march, but not the man who's behind it? How do you feel?
Well, I think the President probably is a victim of a lot of the 30-second bites. He doesn't know me, but perhaps if he got to know me, he would see that I'm not a man of malice or divisiveness. I didn't start the country on a divisive road. I'm not the father of Jim Crow and segregation. I'm not the father of redlining. I'm just not that. And so it's sad to blame the victim for the crime of the real criminals.
If you had to go back, Reverend Farrakhan, would you have tempered the Jewish criticism early on so that you were not labeled in that regard? Since you say you're taken out of context, would have been better off if you had just never mentioned Jews. Martin Luther King never mentioned Jews or Irish or Italian. I knew him well. Never saw him refer to other religions or races.
I never knew the politics of this. When Reverend Jesse Jackson was running for president, I saw the media beginning to demonize the brother, and I felt personally I didn't want to see him hurt. So I spoke out. And in speaking out, I was called a new black Hitler, and that started the controversy. And for 11 years now, we've been seeking a dialogue. We started with Nathan Perlmutter back in 1984, and now with Mr. Foxman and the 12 presidents.
But you have flamed the flames a little, haven't you?
Yes, but they have too. I didn't put the ad in the New York Times. They did. I didn't insert them into the march. They inserted themselves into the march. I didn't call it Farrakhan's march. The news media called it Farrakhan's march. And they called it that specifically so that it would divide our people and make them want to stay away because of the reputation of Farrakhan.
Why, Reverend Farrakhan?
Now they don't want to give me credit.
Why were Jews even ever a part of the message? What do they have to do with your ministry?
Well, I think it probably is better that when we sit down and dialogue, we can get into all of that. But right now, I think it is a time for healing, and it is a time for reconciliation, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. And to keep feeding the fire with fuel doesn't help the problem.
So you're willing to sit down?
Oh, certainly.
Are you willing to also say that if you offended, you apologize?
If the Jewish leaders can show me in truth where I spoke other than the truth, then I would have to apologize. And I'm not too big to do that. But I can never apologize for speaking the truth.
Simply put, then, do you believe all people are created equal?
No, I don't believe that. I believe all people are created equally, but all people are not equal in that some will do greater than others, some will run faster than others, some are brighter than others, but all of us are created equally under a divine law that renders us all equal.
I mean, collectively, though, blacks aren't better than Jews, Jews aren't better than Christians, Christians aren't better than atheists.
The person who is better is the person who is most careful of his or her duty to God. I'm not better because I'm black, and you're not better because you're white. But if I use my gifts and my talents for the glory of God, and I'm dutiful to God and obedient to his laws and statutes, then God may say I am better, but that's never for me to say, because then it becomes a vain expression.
You said something very interesting in the green room that I'll repeat, and I wish you'd elaborate on. 3 words. You said, I am Jewish.
Yes.
You are Jewish.
Yes, because Paul said the Jew is not the Jew outwardly by the circumcision of the male organ. The Jew is the Jew inwardly by the circumcision of the heart. So what God demands today is a new Jew and a new covenant, not the Jew that's the Jew outwardly by rituals, but the Jew that's the Jew inwardly by total submission and obedience to the will and the law of God.
But you bear no group hate.
Pardon me?
You bear no
sir.
Group hate.
No, sir.
Do you think in the days ahead after the success of this march, you might work harder at bringing that together?
Well, I am willing, certainly, to give it a try. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in one of his writings that he believed that the American Jews and the blacks in America would form an accord. And I believe that that will happen, but when, I don't know. But I think that if Palestinians and Arabs could sit together over rivers of blood and come to some peace accord, though it's difficult, why can't we sit and find peace?
In a moment, we'll find out what Reverend Farrakhan thinks will happen based on this march, his thoughts on Colin Powell, and your phone calls, and then a panel discussion. And tomorrow night, an old friend of Reverend Farrakhan, Newt Gingrich, will be here. Don't go away.
Today, whether you like it or not, God brought the idea through me. And he didn't bring it through me because my heart was dark with hatred and anti-Semitism. He didn't bring it through me because my heart was dark and I'm filled with hatred for white people and for the human family of the planet. If my heart were that dark, how is the message so bright, the message so clear, the response so magnificent?
Was it the March of Atonement? Was that?
It was a holy day of atonement and reconciliation, yes.
In the Jewish Day of Atonement, we ask God to forgive us, but we ask also those who we have sinned against to forgive us. And we are not atoned unless both do it. Is that the same thing with you?
Yes, definitely.
See, those who you sinned against have to forgive you as you have to be forgiven by them. for atonement to be accomplished.
That's correct.
Do you think you took a major step toward that today?
Well, we attempted. We attempted. You know, we mentioned 8 stages. The first stage is the most painful, making someone to know their sins, and then they acknowledge it, then they confess it, then they repent of it, and then they atone for it, and then they're forgiven for it, then reconciliation, then a perfect union.
So where along the 8 steps are you?
Me? Well, I try.
Where do you think the people are? Where do you think we are?
Well, first, America has never apologized to us for what was done to our people. President Clinton, in his speech today, he started from the law in 1776, the Constitution, but we had already done 200 years in slavery.
Wasn't Lyndon Johnson's Howard University speech and the Civil Rights Act of 1963 a pretty strong apology?
Yes and no. You see, recognizing you were wrong is good. Confessing that you were wrong is good. But then if you repent of that wrong, you never go back to doing that again. You make a step forward where we're concerned, and then some conservatives come along and wipe it out. You give us voting rights, and you give us public accommodations, but then the Supreme Court strikes it down. In 1896, we were voting, we were in Congress, and then the black codes were enacted. So you do good, and then you wipe it out.
What's your goal?
My goal is freedom, justice, and equality for my people. And if we can create a just society where all of us can live under righteous law and treat each other as we should treat each other, we have the kingdom of God.
How far along are we on that road?
We're not.
Not on the road yet?
Yeah, we're on a road, but we're on the road to total destruction. You know, the O.J. Simpson judgment manifested the Great Divide. It was the same Great Divide that the Kerner Commission saw. It was the same Great Divide that Abraham Lincoln saw. So here we are, 100 and some odd years from Abraham Lincoln, and we're still at the Great Divide. So what needs to be done? Can we gloss it over? Can we lie to each other? The president said today we must be honest with each other. But when you've got people that have a slave mentality and they depend on your largesse, they do not want to tell you the real truth about what they feel. And so Brother Farrakhan, he will tell you the truth because he doesn't depend on your largesse. And then some of my own brothers will smack me or speak evil of me, but in private, they will say, he's really telling the truth.
This, of course, had nothing to do with whether O.J. did it or not, whether he did the crime he was accused of.
I don't understand.
Is that one of the points you're getting at, whether he committed that crime? Are you discussing only the reaction to the jury?
Yes, but now...
You're not giving an opinion on the crime itself.
No, I'm not. You know, I can't say whether he did or didn't, but I know one thing, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, the same shall he reap. We can fool the court of man, but we can never fool the court of God.
So you're saying if he did it, he's going to pay?
Oh, definitely.
Today, Colin Powell said that he wished, on CBS this morning, that he wished somebody else had thought of this idea of a million-man march other than Minister Farrakhan. Went on to say he was concerned that your presence on the stage, that his presence on the stage, had he come, would have given it more credibility. What are your thoughts on General Powell?
Well, let me first say, this is not a new statement. As I read the Holy Quran, there were all kinds of excuses put up by the people. They never did like the messenger. They said if he had come from the learned class, or if he had come from this maybe we would have heard the message. But God, the scripture says, knows best where to place his message. If he had placed the call in Colin Powell's mouth, 1 million people wouldn't have shown up. If he had placed it in other folks' mouth, the people would not have shown up. He knew best where to place his message. The call transcended Louis Farrakhan, but I made the call by the grace of God, and God's Spirit touched the people, and they responded.
But you would agree, as a learned man, that Colin Powell may be the most popular man in America today, as an individual.
Let me say, I respect Mr. Powell, General Powell. And of course, I think if he had been present today, he would have been dignified. He would have been more legitimized with black people, because right now he's the hero of white people. He's growing among black people, but he's not there yet. He's never been seen, in the struggle, day-to-day struggle of black people. We know he was involved in a struggle, but he was not involved on picket lines. He was not involved in the day-to-day nitty-gritty battles of black folk, where black folk could see him and touch him and feel him. He was in the armed service, and he made a great career.
Would you like to see him run?
If he wished to run.
And would you like to see him run? If he wished to run, would you applaud that?
No, I'm past applauding a black man for running to be the manager of a white reality. I'm sick of us being played out of pocket. It's really a game. Oh, that's so nice, a black president. Yes, it is. It calms the ego. But what about the fear? What about the real powers in America that pull the strings and manipulate the office of president? We see mayors, we see governors, we see senators, and we built up great cities, but go in those cities and look at the condition of black people. Just because we have a black president, that does not mean that his presence in the White House is a cure-all for the sicknesses of this nation.
But it sure wouldn't be a step back.
No, but I wouldn't want our people deceived thinking it might be a step forward, when in reality, in most of the cities, the black masses have gone backward, even with a black mayor in office. We're proud of them, but we haven't profited.
We'll be back with your phone calls for Louis Farrakhan, and then we'll meet Jesse Jackson, Dr. Alvin Poussant, Myrlie Evers-Williams, and Representative Gary Franks in the second half. We'll go to your phone calls after this.
1 million men are right to be standing up for personal responsibility. But 1 million men do not make right one man's message of malice and division. No good house was ever built on a bad foundation. Nothing good ever came of hate.
To Chicago, hello.
Hello. I'm an African-American woman, and I want to just comment that I was thrilled with pride to see so many African Americans come together in a peaceful manner. And I think that the Reverend Farrakhan should be applauded for that. But I do want to know what some of his strategies are for improving our communities, particularly the education of our young people, because most of them are subjugated to the financially strapped and rapidly further cuts in education. And I feel
you have
that
an education program?
Yes. We favor what is called an African-centered educational system. We don't feel that education, the way it has been given to us, has proved beneficial. We have many PhDs, many master degrees, many Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts degrees, but we don't have many factories and we don't have many businesses in our community to give goods and service to our people. That means that something is wrong. We have a good education, but a good education to make us serve others and not ourselves and not the benefit of our community. So we need a better kind of education that will make us give the benefit of that education first back to our own communities.
St. Louis, Missouri, hello.
Good evening, Larry.
Hi.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Minister.
Walaikum salam, sir.
I'd just like to make a comment and a quick question to the Brother Minister. I'd like to say that I'm very, very happy with your results today. I think it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen today. And I'd like to say, don't let those people who talk about you discourage you. You keep on. We need more brothers like you. You're a beautiful man. And I'm not a Muslim, but I do support you and your organization. I think you do wonderful things for us black men.
Thank you.
And my question is, will there be more marches and more activity in response to today?
Well, the march was really a mobilizing effort to begin the process of organizing our people and then developing an agenda that is social, economic, and political, educational in scope. The leaders are together. We shall meet again in the next few weeks. We shall sit down and begin the process of fulfilling everything that we pledged to our people today. So you can look for good things to happen, but not necessarily for us to call major marches. The money that was spent on this march was spent as a sacrifice to mobilize our people for action back in their cities. Now that action must take place to make that sacrifice worthy.
Back with our remaining moments with Reverend Louis Farrakhan after this.
Hello, Larry.
Hi.
Gentlemen, I have a sort of two-part question, one for Mr. Farrakhan. I understand that they charge $10 a head times 1 million men. I just wonder about the accountability of the money and where it's going. And then, Larry, for you, I notice you in the media and C-SPAN give such great coverage to this. I wonder why an organization like Promise Keepers that reaches out to blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, that fills up stadiums all over the United States.
If you'd send us information about it, I'd love to do some work on it. I've never heard of Promise Keepers. But if you send us stuff, we're open to everything on CNN.
First, everyone didn't pay $10, but I'll be very happy to say to you that the money that we collected, we're going to have an outside accounting firm to look at everything that came in, all of our expenses, and we intend to make a report to the leadership as well as to the community. And whatever is over, if we have anything over, the national and local organizing committees will determine whether that money will be put into a startup fund for the African American Economic Development Fund.
We're running short on time. Do you want to sit down with President Clinton? Have you asked for a meeting?
No, I have not.
Will you?
No, I will not. I think that Reverend Jackson and the step that he's taking with the 12 presidents, if that step continues, I will sit down there. I don't know whether the president would be willing to sit down with me, and I don't want to seem like the old Negro that is so happy to sit down with the president of the United States. If he wishes to sit down with me to discuss anything about the future of our people and the future of the nation, I would be glad to sit down, but I won't beg him for it.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Reverend Louis Farrakhan. When we come back, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Dr. Alvin Poussaint of Harvard, the chairman of the NAACP, Myrlie Evers Williams, and the Republican black congressman from Connecticut, a critic of the march, Gary Franks. Don't go away.
Next, the Black Muslims, an organization now active in the war on drugs throughout many black inner-city communities in the United States, but still widely perceived as a threat to white America. Founded by Elijah Muhammad, the group had but 3,000 followers in 1950. But thanks to the writings and speeches of Malcolm X, its membership grew dramatically to 200,000 by 1965, and in the decade after his murder, to 300,000, its peak. In a moment, the first network TV interview in 4 years with Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, whose comments provoked controversy and outrage throughout the 1980s, a man who sees himself as a target.
And then ultimately, the aim is to murder me. That's the ultimate.
A singer of calypso music, but he soon turned to full-time work in his religious faith, the Muslim faith. He's become extremely controversial. Here is a brief look at why. Louis Farrakhan, 56, charismatic minister of the Nation of Islam, is on the march. For years, he has preached a fiery message of racial mistrust.
Why should we pay taxes for a police department that kills our grandmothers, kills our babies, shoots us down? And we will sit down with the president, whoever he may be, and we will negotiate for a separate state or territory.
Farrakhan was recruited to the black Muslim movement by the legendary Malcolm X, the best-known follower of the movement's founder, Elijah Muhammad. Until, in 1965, having split with the founder, Malcolm X was shot dead at a rally in Harlem. 3 of his former Muslim colleagues were convicted of the murder. When Elijah Muhammad died in 1975, there was another split. A large group of moderates went off to call themselves the American Muslim Mission. A smaller group of militants retained the name Nation of Islam and followed Louis Farrakhan, who, through his speeches and his radio broadcasts, has inspired many blacks but angered many whites, none more so than Jews, who see in him a virulent anti-Semite.
There can be no peace structured on injustice, thievery, lying, and deceit, and using the name of God to shield your dirty religion under his holy and righteous name.
It was this controversy over his remarks about Israel and Jews that brought Farrakhan forcefully to public attention in 1984, when he endorsed his friend, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, for president. The two of them got in trouble over the issue. Jackson referred to New York City as Hymietown, and Farrakhan seemed to threaten the black newsman who reported it, the Washington Post's Milton Coleman.
I said, but we're going to make an example of Milton Coleman. One day soon, we will punish you with death.
Eventually, Jackson had to separate himself from Farrakhan, but it wasn't easy.
I disassociated myself from the message, but not from the messenger, and that is a distinct difference, you see.
But if Louis Farrakhan upsets a lot of people, it is also true that one of his programs today is earning him a good deal of praise. His followers are patrolling several inner-city neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere, rooting out the drug dealers. Washington City Councilman Harry Thomas introduced a resolution commending Farrakhan for making the neighborhoods safer.
They cleaned it out. It's a decent place to live now. People not afraid or to go out on the streets in their neighborhoods.
You're telling me they did a good job?
I think they did a very good job. I think they're still doing a good job.
Last week, Farrakhan broke his self-imposed 4-year moratorium on mainstream national press interviews and sat down separately with the Washington Times and the Washington Post, saying he wanted to end bitterness and play a larger role in national life. The Post gave the story an expansive, respectful play. Too respectful for its own columnist, Richard Cohen, who thinks Farrakhan's message hasn't really changed.
He stands for black pride, he stands for self-help, all of which are good. But he also stands for racism, which is bad. He stands for anti-Semitism, which is bad. And he stands for scapegoating, which I think ultimately is really counterproductive.
Minister Farrakhan, let's begin by talking about the record. You've often referred to white people as devils. You've said many things, some of which we've just seen, which people don't like. And why shouldn't white America be just scared to death of you?
If we are afraid of truth or afraid of justice, then one would be afraid of one who speaks truth and cries out for justice. But if one seeks honest solutions to real problems and will find that solution in the truth, then there is no need to fear a man who speaks the truth and condemns that which is unjust and wicked.
But what about the language? Are you telling me the truth is that we whites are devils?
What is your definition, sir, of a devil?
What is yours?
I would say that a devil is a wicked person, and I don't think that whites in their relationships with blacks and dark people around the world have been good or saintly. Would you think so?
Do you think that white America is trying to practice genocide on black people?
If we examine the record, Mr. Donaldson, we see that whites in their interaction with dark people throughout the world have practiced a form of genocide. And this is why there were millions of Indians in America when whites came, and now there are just about 2 million left. There were millions of Indians in the Caribbean, and they're gone. And there were millions in South America, and they are going. And the Maori people in New Zealand and the Aborigines in Australia are gone. And so we see a useless population of millions of black people unemployed and unemployable. And America that has not taken kindly to persons who are useless, we believe is practicing a form of genocide on the masses of our people.
Do I take it, Minister Farrakhan, you don't believe in integration of the races? You really want separatism?
The religion of Islam teaches us that all human beings can get along well if we accept the principles and the practice of brotherhood. That has not been the case. The Kerner Commission in 1967 or 68 said that there are two Americas, one black, one white, separate and unequal. In 1988, the Kerner Commission looked back at the horrendous situation and said, not only is America separate and unequal, but the conditions are worse 20 years later. So it's not that I don't believe in integration. I do not believe that white America believes in integration.
You have said a few years ago that you wanted a place within America for black people, but your most recent statement is that you think black people ought to receive reparations and perhaps go to Africa, to a place there. I have two questions. How much reparations from the U.S. government? Who should pay for them? And what place in Africa?
If we want to solve the problem, Mr. Donaldson, we must recognize that there are millions of black people today who are suffering in America, and no one has come up with a solution to this problem. And yet, black people who have built this country, whose fathers' sweat and blood built the economy of the early America, and we who have fought, bled, and died in every theater of war that America has had, we helped America to rebuild Germany after World War II. Germany's rebuilt, Japan is rebuilt. Blacks are still in a terrible condition.
Well, I can see that, Minister Farrakhan, that you have helped build America, but so have Irish people who came here, Italians, many people from many lands.
Yes.
You seem to say that blacks ought to receive money from the U.S. government, reparations. How much?
If the American government sees that there's justice in giving to the Japanese reparations for 4 years in the concentration camps and the confiscation of their goods and property, what about black people who were brought to America, not on the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, or the Mayflower, but in the holds of ships, whose fathers worked for 300 years for no pay?
But what I'm asking you is how much? Tell us how much.
Well, I can't say in terms of dollars at this point how much, but if the government is willing to sit down and take account of what is owed black people, why should we live in substandard housing? Why should we be on welfare?
Anyone?
Yes, but why should we who helped build the country live in that condition? We're not asking for welfare. Give to black people what you owe us and let us make a future for ourselves.
You see, if I may, what I'm hearing, and I think what many whites are hearing, is not that people who built America should share in its prosperity, and people who don't have adequate housing should have adequate housing. But you keep talking about blacks should have it, blacks should have it. That's divisive, isn't it?
I doubt that very seriously. I think that the world will admit that just the other day, the facts were brought out that 25% of young black men are either in prison, on parole, or under court supervision. You have another infant mortality rate that is so sickening that they feel if it continues, we will lose another whole generation. Our people are dying with 60,000 excess deaths over the natural normal death rate. My point is,
whites are responsible
if
for this?
blacks are dying like this, and I represent the suffering of black people, why should that offend white people who have spokespersons for Italians, for Irish, for Jews? Why should anybody be upset that I speak for the hurt of my own people?
You talked about Jews in that litany you just gave us. Jews believe you're anti-Semitic, and why do they believe that? Because of what you said. We heard one example when you talked about their dirty religion, Israel and its dirty religion. What did you mean by that?
Sir, no sane, intelligent, spiritual teacher could ever say that the revealed word of God from the source of purity is unclean. That revealed word comes to those in the gutter who are unclean to lift them and purify their actions. But religion is not what people profess. Religion is what we practice. The state of Israel, I'm saying, practices deceit, murder, lying, and uses the cover of Bible and religion and prophecy as a shield for that dirty, unclean practice.
You condemn a whole state. Everyone in it.
Oh, I don't say condemn everybody in the state, but I'm saying that the state, in my judgment, is illegal to take land from the Palestinians, give it to somebody else under the pretext that this is the Bible's fulfillment. There are 800,000 Jews in America who do not believe that the state of Israel was set up according to the divine prophecy.
Jews in America, Minister.
They're not anti-Semitic.
Well, Jews in America, you've often said that you think Jews have an inordinate influence in this country, particularly in the communications media.
In Mr. Raspberry's column in the Washington Post last week, He said, and I'm quoting him, that according to the Jews' numbers, they do exercise an inordinate amount of control and influence beyond their numbers. In the papers today, Mr. Carl Rowan talked about $3 billion going to Israel, that in the light of today's world events and the suffering of the world, some of those $3 billion should be rechanneled and reinvested back in America.
You say you're not anti-Semitic.
Does that mean that Mr. Rowan is anti-Semitic?
You say you're not anti-Semitic.
Certainly not.
So lots of Jews are good citizens, good people?
Of course.
Who are the ones you admire?
I can't say that I have a list of admiring persons among them.
Can you name one Jew you admire?
Oh, there are many.
Can you name
one? When
I
was a musician, I wanted to play as well as Yasha Heifetz, and he's one of the greatest that ever played the violin. There are many Jews that one could admire, but it's not the good things about people that we're talking about. The good takes care of itself. It's the evil that needs to be corrected and made good, Mr. Donaldson.
You believe that George Bush, the President of the United States, wants to have you killed. Why?
I believe that Mr. Bush, in his own words, sir, speaking before the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles 1 week before he was elected president, said that he's going to continue funding the Justice Department in their vigorous investigation and prosecution of anti-Semites, whether they wear brown shirts, white shirts, and bow ties, whether they live in Skokie, Chicago, or Brooklyn, the villain is the same. And I'm sure when he spoke about white shirts and bow ties, he wasn't speaking about Senator Simon. He was, by inference, referring to Louis Farrakhan.
So you draw the inference he was referring to you, and then you make the leap that he wants to have you killed?
Sir, we just talked about death squads from South Africa.
You quoted the president accurately. He said he wanted to fight hate groups and anti-Semites. You said you're not an anti-Semite. How could he be referring to you?
The President Bush, when he was vice president, spoke against me as an anti-Semite. The U.S. Senate, with no black people...
What was that quotation?
That no place in America is there for anti-Semites, bigots,
but you say
and
racists. You say you're not a racist and anti-Semite.
This country was founded on bigotry, racism, and anti-Semitism.
Mr. Minister, I'm confused. You have insisted tonight you are not a bigot, you're not a racist, you're not an anti-Semite, but then you say because the President of the United States complains about racists and anti-Semitites, he's talking about you.
Sir, in your piece...
And he wants to kill you.
In your piece that you just showed, the death squads in South Africa, in a racist regime, have come against those who preach against apartheid. It is no accident that Martin Luther King was assassinated and the government of the United States had his rooms bugged, followed him about, tried to discredit him. It is not an accident that the counterintelligence program of the United States government under J. Edgar Hoover was a program designed to keep any black leader from properly addressing the concerns of our people, even to the point of assassination. And it is not an accident that the CIA planned and carried out the murder of several heads of state in the world. So let us not say that Mr. Bush and the government of the United States is opposed to getting rid of what they perceive as a threat. Right now, the government of the United States planned the murder of Muammar Gaddafi. That was the most expensive assassination attempt in the history of the world. And I'm sure, sir, the bombing of the PDF headquarters in Panama was a murder attempt against Noriega. And unfortunately, for them, they missed. And now Mr. Noriega is in America as an embarrassment to the Bush administration.
Let me ask you about your future plans. Do you plan to run for political office in this country?
Never.
Do you plan to support people who do?
I most certainly do intend to support those who advocate those positions that will bring more justice, more equity, and a balanced distribution of the wealth of America to those poor and suffering
Let me ask you about Reverend Jackson. You supported him in '84, but in 1987 you said you would not publicly support him because I guess you feared that you'd be an embarrassment to him? Or why? What about '92? If he runs, will you support him?
I can't say. That's a long way off, and Mr. Jackson has not said yet that he would run. But
Do you think you would be an embarrassment to him?
if he perceived it that way, and as long as there are programs like this, Mr. Donaldson, which will allow me a fair hearing before the American people, I believe that the American people will not see me as an embarrassment. They'll see me as a man who speaks the truth and has suffered on account of it.
Minister Farrakhan, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing.
From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with Tim Russert.
Welcome again to Meet the Press. Our issues this Sunday morning: race, rhetoric, and responsibility. In his first appearance ever on Meet the Press, the organizer of the Million Man March, the leader of the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. And we're back. Minister Farrakhan, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Bob Novak heard you speak in Florida recently and wrote a column entitled Farrakhan and the GOP. And he says that Farrakhan is knocking on the door of the Republican Party, the first modern black leader to do so. But who will open the door and sit down and talk to him? You just heard John Kasich, whom you praised. Jack Kemp last night said it's impossible to sit down with you because of things you said. Are you trying to reach out and play a role in the Republican Party?
First, let me say that when men of high political standing say that it is impossible to sit down with Farrakhan because of the things he has said, should I then say it is impossible to sit down with white people for the things that they have done? I speak words, and I believe my words are truth. But what my people have suffered and continue to suffer in America is very real. So if there's going to be some meeting of the minds, intelligent people should sit down, pardon me, and not give me preconditions, but sit down and talk about the future of this nation and the future of suffering people in America.
In preparing for this interview, I read the literature that your organization puts out and publishes, and I'd like to go through some of it to find out what you believe and how it affects America. This is your newspaper, which comes out once a month, and on the back page, once a week, in the back page is the Muslim program, What the Muslims Want. And if I could go through a few of these, let me put one on the screen and get your reaction. The first is in terms of territory, and you'll see, since we cannot get along with them in peace and equality, we believe our contributions to this land and the suffering forced upon us by white America justifies our demand for complete separation in a state or territory of our own. Is that your view in 1997, a separate state for black Americans?
First, the program starts with number one. That is number 4. The first part of that program is that we want freedom, a full and complete freedom. And the second is we want justice, and we want equal justice under the law, and we want justice applied equally to all, regardless of race or class or color. And the third is that we want equality. We want equal membership in society with the best in civilized society. If we can get that within the political, economic, social system of America, there's no need for point number 4. But if we cannot get along in peace, after giving America 400 years of our service and sweat and labor, then of course separation would be the solution to our race problem.
You told the Washington Times a few years ago, we have no hope that we can effect true reconciliation between blacks and whites in this country. The answer ultimately is going to be separation.
It appears that way. America right now is faced with the same problem that it faced in the 1860s with Abraham Lincoln. You have a country, a great nation, but it is divided. And so that time it was North and South, and in the middle of that divide was the question, what are we going to do with slavery? Today, America is suffering the same problem, the racial divide, and in the center of that, what are we going to do about justice for the black and the red and the brown?
Last year, you gave an interview to Henry Louis Gates, professor from Harvard in New Yorker magazine, where he asked you whether you still subscribe to the teachings of Elijah Muhammad on Yaqub, a black scientist who 6,600 years ago created the white man, and that by the end of the 20th century, a spaceship will come and rain down upon white people and people who don't embrace Islam. Do you subscribe to the teachings of Yaqub, that Yaqub, the black scientist, created the white man?
I subscribe to every word that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. You know, it's not unreal to believe that white people who genetically cannot produce yellow, brown, or black had a black origin. The scholars and scientists of this world agree that the origin of man and mankind started in Africa, and that the first parent of the world was black. The Quran says that God created Adam out of black mud and fashioned him into shape. So if white people came from the original people or black people, what is the process by which you came to life? That is not a silly question. That is a scientific question with a scientific answer. It doesn't suggest that we are superior or that you are inferior. It suggests, however, that your birth or your origin is from the black people of this earth. Superiority and inferiority is determined by our righteousness and not by our color.
So Yaqub, a black scientist, created whites.
We believe that, yes. John in the Bible in Patmos, who was on the Isle of Patmos, which is in the Aegean Sea, for the word of the Lord, which is to let us make man in the image of the original.
Elijah Muhammad also said that whites are blue-eyed devils. Do you believe that?
Well, you have not been saints in the way you have acted toward the darker people of the world and toward even your own people. But in truth, Mr. Russert, any human being who gives themselves over to the doing of evil could be considered a devil. And in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, it talks about the fall of Babylon. And it says Babylon is fallen because she has become the habitation of devils. And we believe that that ancient Babylon is a symbol of a modern Babylon, which is America. And in America, America has become a land of people who want to do their own thing. And their own thing is in direct contravention and rebellion against the will of God, which makes any rebel against God an agent of Satan.
Let me go back to the Muslim program. One of the points also is interracial marriage, and we'll take a look at that on our screen. We believe that interracial marriage or race mixing should be prohibited. Is that still your view?
Our view is that there are at least 5 or 6 black women to every black male. The black male is either in prison, in the armed forces, in the streets, on drugs. The black woman needs a mate. And if the black man is a suitable mate, I believe I would prefer that he chooses one of his own women. Racial harmony to me does not mean racial mixing. Racial harmony to me means mutual respect of one people for another.
Can you, as a black man, marry a white woman, or a black woman marry a white man, and still be in good standing in the Nation of Islam?
The mother of the leader who came to North America to teach us, Farad Muhammad, his mother was a white woman. His father was a black man. So where there is love, love transcends our racial denomination or ethnicity. Love is the great power of transformation. So I don't think that we can say when two people are in love that they shouldn't marry one another. But I would prefer that the black man and the black woman marry into their own kind.
Let me show you 2 other points. A quick one is on the whole idea of prisons, which I found interesting. We want freedom for all believers of Islam now held in federal prison, and also on taxes. We want the government of the United States to exempt our people from all taxation as long as we are deprived of equal justice under the laws of the land. Anyone who believes in Islam should be freed from federal prison, and black Americans should not pay taxes?
Well, if you look at Islam, Islam is a religion that absolutely reforms and transforms our life. If I might take just a moment to say something about the religion of Islam. While we believe that Christianity and the Judeo-Christian context is the most evangelical of the religions, Islam is the most ecumenical. Because in Islam, we believe in Moses and the Torah. We believe in Jesus and the gospel. We believe in all of the prophets and the scriptures that they brought. So when a person goes to prison who has been deprived of equal justice, and because of the lack of equality of opportunity in the pursuit of happiness, gets involved in social conduct that is against the law, when that person accepts Islam, and their life is transformed into that of a righteous person, we believe that a righteous person should be freed from prison. And about taxation, I would respectfully say that some of the founding fathers of this great nation said that taxation without representation is tyranny. And as long as we are deprived of equal justice under the law, why should we pay taxes to a system that certainly is not good for us as it is presently structured?
You are heading to Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, at the invitation of the mayor of Philadelphia to address an ecumenical meeting because there had been some racial killings in Philadelphia, both whites and blacks. Jewish organizations refused to participate. Yesterday, the Catholic Church refused to participate. And they cited some of the things you said in your past. I want to walk through those and find out why they are so offended and your reaction to it. You heard John Kasich talk about love as opposed to hate in your heart. The Catholic Church cited this in my conversations, and I'll put it on the board. We just got to tell the truth. Catholicism has been, by white people, for white people, to subject black people to a white kind of theology that strips us of ourselves. That was you in 1994. And they particularly took great offense to Khalid Muhammad, your former chief spokesman, who said the old no-good pope, you know that cracker, somebody needs to raise that dress up and see what's really under there. Do you understand why Catholics take offense and believe that you are bigoted towards them?
Do you understand why black people would be upset that we were brought to America on the slave ships run by Christians, so-called Christians, and while we were being burned at the stake and hung on trees and castrated and dehumanized, the Catholic Church did not speak out on our behalf, nor did the Christian Church. And it was 3 centuries that the Bible was locked against us. If I might respectfully say, Mayor Rendell is Jewish. He invited me to the city. I hope to speak to that condition. And I would hope that the Catholic Church would not fasten on words while we could fasten on deeds. Do you know that the young men who ran out and beat up that young lady in Philadelphia came out of a Catholic church? The recent incident in Bridgeport in Chicago, those young men were Catholics. I am called a hate teacher, a hate preacher, an anti-Semite, a bigot, and nobody wants to talk with me because it doesn't appear that I have love in my heart. But look, in the 20 years that I have been the leader of the Nation of Islam, there is not one single incident of any Muslim being arrested for a hate crime. Yet the church is the bastion of love, but all of this hate is coming toward us out of the church. I think it is a mistake that the church won't be present. I think it is a mistake that members of the synagogue won't be present, but that is exactly the way it has been. The members of the church abdicate their responsibility to social justice. Something has to be done, and the church has a very important role to play. Not only the black church, but the white church as well.
Do you believe the Catholic Church is anti-black and the Pope is a no-good cracker?
I don't use that cheap language. I don't like that. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also did not subscribe to that kind of language. I do believe, however, that white Eurocentric supremacy has been placed on religion. And that's why in most of the black churches and in some Catholic churches today, they have replaced the image of a white Jesus with a black Jesus, and out of Christianity is coming a black theology because they recognize that white supremacy has permeated Christianity and particularly Catholicism.
Your comments about Jews, and they've also are refusing to participate in this meeting, are widely reported, the reference to it as a dirty religion. I went and reviewed what you said, and I went back and I watched your speech from 1995. And I'd like to play just a piece of that for you to explain exactly what you meant. And let's roll the tape if we can.
German Jews financed Hitler. Right here in America, Loeb and Kuhn and Jacob Schiff, international bankers, financed Hitler, and poor Jews died, while big Jews were at the root of what you call the Holocaust. Why don't you tell that? Little Jews died, while big Jews made money. Little Jews being turned into soap, while big Jews washed themselves with it. Jews playing violin, Jews playing music, while other Jews marching into the gas chambers.
Now, if you were a Jewish American watching that, your reference to what you call the Holocaust, suggesting whether there was a Holocaust, and the whole reference to big Jews and little Jews, and the emphasis you use, why wouldn't you say that's anti-Semitic?
The question is it truth? If it is truth, then it is not anti-Semitic, it is truth. My problem with the Jewish community is that most of the people feel, or the Jewish people feel, that if you criticize any act of Jews, that is anti-Semitic. If I criticize Arabs, if I criticize the government of the United States, if I criticize white people or my own black people, I'm not considered anti-black, anti-Arab. Why should anybody who criticizes Jewish behavior that ill affects black people and their pursuit of happiness be considered anti-Semitic? Last week, Orthodox Jews made the statement that Reform and conservative Jews are off the page of Judaism. I saw it not in the New York Times, but I saw it in the Chicago papers, just a little writing, but nobody called them anti-Semitic. But if I said that Reform Jews or conservative Jews or those that do not follow the laws, commandments, and statutes given by God to the prophets of Israel are not really Jews, then I'm considered anti-Semitic. I am not anti-Semitic. I do not hate Jewish people. I hate actions of any people, including my own, that are evil and are obstructive to justice, freedom, and equity.
Do you believe there was a Holocaust in which 6 million Jews perished?
Of course I believe that Jews perished in Germany. And the same Jews that perished in Germany, while the Pope Pius XII looked the other way, and the government of America looked the other way, now there is reconciliation between Jews and Catholics and the government of the United States. What is wrong with reconciliation between those who looked the other way when my fathers were being brought into America as slaves and to this very moment have not received justice? I think atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility should be the watchword for this time, and I'm willing to sit down with any who wish to discuss atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility.
Would you be willing to retract or apologize for some of the things you said?
If in any dialogue I can be shown to be in error, I would most surely apologize. But you cannot put me off in a corner and not dialogue with me and then say to me, Farrakhan speaks words that are hateful. If I can defend every word that I speak, and every word that I speak is truth, then I have nothing to apologize for. But if in a dialogue you can show me where I am in error, I am not a proud man. I will humble myself and go before the world and apologize. But now the burden is, will you show me where I am wrong?
I went up on the internet last night, www.noi, nationofislam.org, and found an essay written by one of your followers, and it said the following: the Jews' awesome control over American society and government. All presidents since Franklin Roosevelt, 1932, are controlled by Jews. Do you believe that?
I believe that for the small numbers of Jewish people in the United States, they exercise a tremendous amount of influence on the affairs of government. Right now, there is a tremendous problem in the Middle East, a very grave problem. I do not think that President Clinton is handling his role in the most responsible manner. As you know, East Jerusalem was under Palestinian control until the year 1967. After the Six-Day War, it was annexed by Israel. It is part of ongoing negotiations. Now, for Netanyahu to say he wishes to build now in East Jerusalem, and the world says he shouldn't do this. And since he said he would build and started moving on that, violence has erupted and the peace process has been brought to a halt. Mr. President, Mr. Clinton, instead of exercising the strength of a man whose country contributes at least $4 billion every year to the state of Israel, America has influence in Israel, but is not using that influence in a constructive way, but rather pays lip service to the Palestinians while she bows to the dictates of Netanyahu and the strong political Jewish lobby.
Mr. Farrakhan, you seem to be suggesting that what you told Henry Louis Gates in New Yorker, you still believe there's a small Jewish cabal that meets on Park Avenue or Hollywood and tries to shape our culture.
I don't know why you would put that on me. I was quoting a Jewish movie producer in Jamaica producing the movie Lost in the Stars, and it was that Jewish producer who told me this. I didn't ask him. He mentioned this to me.
This is what you said, sir. Who controls black arts? Who controls black sports figures? Who controls black intellectuals, black politicians? When I talk to the Jews, I'm talking to a segment of that quorum that holds my people in their grip.
And that is true. Who controls the movement of the NAACP, the Urban League? Who controls black politicians?
Who does?
Why is it that when I go before our brothers in quiet, they can say good things about me? But when they fear the Jewish reaction to any kind word, look at Mr. Novak. He just said a few kind words about my work, and look at the kind of brickbats he has received. Mayor Rendell invited me to Philadelphia, and look at the brickbats he's receiving from his own people. Yes, they exercise extraordinary control. And black people will never be free in this country until they're free of that kind of control. And I do intend, by the help of God, to break up that control so that when a new relationship it is structured on the basis of equity and reciprocity. We cannot allow ourselves to be controlled by any outside group. We must take control of our own destiny. That is what I preach, and that is what I believe, and that is what I'm striving for.
We'll take a very quick break. We'll be right back with more of our interview with Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam right after this. We're back on Meet the Press with the leader of the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Our next question is from David Broder.
Mr. Farrakhan, President Clinton has said that if the United States determines that a foreign government had a part in the attack on the U.S. barracks in Saudi Arabia, where 19 Americans were killed, that we will retaliate against that country. My paper reports today that there is now evidence that Iran was perhaps linked to that attack. Would we be justified in retaliating?
You know, Libya was bombed under the Reagan administration, under the alleged bombing of a discotheque in Germany where 3 people lost, the American soldiers lost their lives. It has since come out that Libya was not responsible for that bombing, yet Reagan ordered the most expensive assassination attempt in the history of the world. Now, America has also, in the beginning, when Pan Am 103 was downed, America said it was Syria, it was possibly Iranian, but Libya was not mentioned. A few years later, it became a Libyan-sponsored terrorist act to justify the continued embargo on Libya. Now America sees Iran, an Islamic republic, as a serious threat. Recently, Congress voted $20 million more for covert operations against Iran. It is feared. America fears the rise of Islam, those in government, and so now they're hinting that there may be some Iranian involvement in this bombing. America shot down an Iranian plane with over 300 Iranians. America has not even apologized to Iran or offered compensation. Now she talks about wanting to retaliate. What kind of retaliation? It is this kind of sick foreign policy objectives of our government that will bring her ultimately to her ruin.
Your travel to some of those countries, including Libya, where you were quoted as describing Mr. Gaddafi as a freedom fighter, has drawn a great deal of criticism. Let me ask you this. I came across a clipping of a speech, actually a transcript of a speech that you made here in Washington just about a year ago at the National Press Club, where you said, quote, "As a Muslim, I cannot pledge allegiance to the flag. My allegiance is to God." We all know the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. I wonder what it is in those words that you find impossible to say.
Liberty and justice for all is one. And as a Muslim, I cannot give my all to the symbol of a government, no matter what that government is. As a Muslim, I give my allegiance only to God. And I submit to the laws that govern this land as long as those laws do not conflict with my religion. That is a basic principle of my belief. And there are many American citizens who subscribe to faiths other than Islam who will not pledge allegiance to the flag. I will never disrespect that flag. I don't agree with flag burning. I don't agree with draping the flag of an independent and sovereign nation over toilets. I don't believe in anyone not respecting the flag of this sovereign nation. And whenever the Star-Spangled Banner is played, even though I will not pledge allegiance, I stand in respect. That is the best that I can give to the flag is respect.
You told Mr. Russert that your goal is to, quote, break up the kind of control that you say
Yes.
Jews now exert over black people in
Yes.
this country. By what means do you intend to break up that control?
To continue to point out the truth of that control and how that control never will allow us to be full and completely men, free, justified, and equal. Why should we be controlled by the power, influence, and money of others? We should not be under that kind of control, which limits us and makes us act like little boys, going to Jewish philanthropists, begging them for money to support our causes. And through that money, there is control. And that kind of control limits the freedom of our people to speak freely, write freely, think freely, and act as free men. And it is that I oppose, and I shall continue to oppose that until our people are completely free.
The country, as you know, is riveted this weekend by the extraordinary spectacle of Tiger Woods, this 21-year-old black man who is setting up a course on a once segregated golf course in Georgia that has won the admiration, apparently, of all of his fellow professionals, most of them white, of course. Do you think that he is somehow in the control of a group of Jews or other people, or what does that represent to you?
I'm not familiar with Tiger Woods' management, agents, and all of the things that
Well,
go
suppose
into
he had a black man. I mean, it had a Jewish manager. What would that do?
I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying that the way black entertainers and sports figures are handled, they are nothing more than glorified pieces of meat.
Is that how you see Tiger Woods?
I don't know Tiger Woods. I'm proud of his work. I'm proud of his accomplishments. He is a giant in his field, as most of our sports figures are. But what I'm concerned with, Mr. Broder, is, you know, America glorifies sports and entertainment figures who are black. Where are our scientists, our doctors, our scholars, our people who add to the development of civilization rather than glorifying only those who embellish the civilization through art? And then, of course, the degenerate culture that is coming from some of our artists. I am angry at that. And Time Warner and those fellas who have our rap artists and promote this degenerate language, this filthy speech, this gangster talk, they have to accept some responsibility for this. And this is wrong, and I will continue to speak out against it.
I attended the Million Man March, and like many others, was impressed by the turnout there. What sort of political leverage do you think that has given black people, or yourself in particular?
In the last election, those who study the election said that 1.7 million black males, more than before, voted in this election. It says that blacks heard our message, they responded to our message, and we hope to organize and mobilize black people so that we can become an economic and political force in the landscape of America.
Black Americans voted overwhelmingly, 9 out of 10 for Bill Clinton. Is that a good thing?
No, it is not. I feel that our people who were once Republicans were very loyal to the Republican Party because of what Abraham Lincoln did. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt came up with the New Deal during the Depression, and black folk found in him a person who was sensitive to the needs of the poor, They left the Republican Party and became Democrats. Now black people are taken for granted in the Democratic Party and not even sought after in the Republican Party. But there is a substantial vote that must not be taken for granted by either party, and we hope to break up that as well.
We have just 10 seconds. What do you think of the teaching of Ebonics to black students in schools across America?
I think that we always have had a way of expressing ourselves that is at home different, but I think we must learn the language and speak the language well in order to communicate our ideas properly.
Minister Louis Farrakhan, we thank you very much for joining us this morning and sharing your views with us.
Thank you for the honor of being on Meet the Press.
And we'll be right back with more right here on Meet the Press.
You didn't say the word gutter. Are you saying that in that particular place where the word, it has been interpreted as gutter, you in fact said dirty?
Correct. But I never said Judaism. See?
You said Israel.
No, yeah, of course. Israel is not Judaism.
So what do you define as Israel? Most people today, when they think of Israel, think of Jews and think of Judaism.
There's a difference between persons who call themselves Jews and persons who live the life that was taught by Moses. Now, there are many people today who call themselves Jews, but there are just a few who live the life taught by Moses. To move around Reverend Jackson and not to deal with Jackson is making upon the party, because I believe Mr. Mondale feels that he doesn't really have to promise black people anything, because he feels that black people want Mr. Reagan out of the White House as much as he does. I think this is a mistake on Mr. Mondale's part, and if the badgering of Reverend Jackson and the alienation of Reverend Jackson at the convention takes place, I do not think that black people are going to take it kindly, and I would respectfully warn the Democratic officials that even though the Jewish vote is strong and powerful, Mr. Mondale cannot win the White House without the black vote, and I would hope he would be reminded of that.
Before we speak specifically on the black vote, let us go back to Reverend Jackson for just a moment. When was the last time that you spoke personally with Reverend Jackson?
Approximately a month ago.
And can you tell us what took place in that conversation?
It was a very warm and loving conversation. All of our conversations have been very brotherly, and whenever he felt that I was in some sort of serious trouble, he would help me in his own way to try to guide me to speak out of the storm or to speak away from the storm. But of course, I am a religious man and not a political man. I have views that I have held for 30 years, and I cannot give up my views for political considerations.
Did you and Reverend Jackson ever have a discussion, as it seems that you have just said you did, and he tried to counsel you in ways to be more careful with some of the things that you were saying?
Yes.
And how did he counsel you? What did he say?
Well, as I just said, speak outside of the storm. Don't speak into the controversy. Speak away from it. Mr. Jackson recognizes that the strength of the Muslim community and the Muslim teaching is in the reform of black people. We have a marvelous record of cleaning up drug addicts and wine addiction and criminal life and criminal behavior and strengthening the family life. So Reverend Jackson's guidance to me was to speak to that aspect of our work rather than those aspects that are so controversial.
The comments that have been reported as being said by Reverend Jackson today, do you feel that Reverend Jackson was pressured into making those comments?
Of course.
And who do you think put the pressure on Reverend Jackson?
Well, as I read in the newspapers, and of course I have to be very careful of what I read in the newspapers, there was a conversation with Mr. Strauss after the debate in, I think it was Dallas, Texas. And Mr. Strauss was overheard telling Reverend Jackson that he had to repudiate Farrakhan. And Mr. Jackson was overheard to saying that he had a moral obligation. And Mr. Strauss was heard to say that's BS. So I would imagine that Mr. Strauss, Mr. Manat, Mr. Mondale, Mr. Hart, the leaders in the Democratic Party, other even black leaders have urged him to pull away from Louis Farrakhan.
Speaking of other black leaders, were you surprised by the comments made today by the executive director of the NAACP, Benjamin Hooks?
No, I was not surprised. I talked with Ben Hooks earlier today, and my respect for him is such that I wanted him to know that I never did say that Judaism was a gutter religion. I wanted him to know that his statement that he held to the Judeo-Christian tenets, that I believed in those tenets myself. And I told him that I would send him a tape of my actual words so that he could see them in context. And he said that he would send to me the full text of his words that I may see them in context. But I am not surprised. You know, he that pays the piper generally calls the tune. And most black organizations are heavily financed by those who are not black. And when a black leader stands up who is bold and assertive and forthright and does not appear to bend or bow or scrape or scratch, then the powers that be usually manipulate those leaders of those organizations whom they fund. And it's very interesting to me that even these organizations and their leaders have been most careful in their remarks.
You keep mentioning that you didn't make the remark about Judaism being a gutter religion. We are taking this out of context. We have a audio portion because your speech was a half an hour long, your sermon. We're going to look at a portion of it. It has itself not been edited. From the moment it starts to the moment it stops, it is a direct run, no editing in between. And perhaps after we listen to this, then you could explain to me exactly what it was that you meant by this.
Certainly.
Let's take a look and a listen to that audio tape right now.
Now that nation called Israel never have had any peace in 40 years, and she will never have any peace because there can be no peace structured on injustice, thievery, lying, and deceit, and using the name of God to shield your dirty religion under his holy and righteous name.
Only one word there was out of place. I never used the word gutter. I used the word dirty. Now, there's a difference between the law of God, the teachings and commandments of God coming through Moses, or the teachings coming through Jesus or through Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them, and the actions of men shielded under their names. In the commandments of Moses to Israel, we are told to set up no God but one God. We are told that we should not steal. We should not commit murder. We should not bear false witness against our neighbor, and we should not covet what belongs to somebody else. I do not feel that Zionism acted in the spirit of the scriptures of the Torah or the Bible or the Old Testament. For in my understanding of the scriptures, Ms. Freeman, in the dispersal of the Jews, it was because of a violation of a covenant made with God. And God's request of the Jews was to return to the law of Moses that they had forsaken, repent of their breaking of that law, and God would return the Jews to that land, and whosoever would bless Israel, God would bless them, and whosoever would curse Israel, God would curse them. Zionism is a political philosophy based on those who wanted to return to the Holy Land without fulfilling the precondition and without waiting for the Messiah who would lead them there. To my understanding, there are over 600,000 Jews who do not believe that the state of Israel is the actual fulfillment of the divine promise made in the scriptures. My words are that lying and thievery and deceit and murder is not the true religion of God, but it is an unclean and dirty religion using God's name and Judaism as a shield for that kind of activity. And that is what I condemn.
Why do you feel, why do you think that so many of the statements that you have made, according to you, have been misinterpreted, misrepresented, taken out of context, and therefore seemingly to mean something that you say they don't mean? Why has this happened repeatedly?
It is not surprising to me, Ms. Freeman, not at all. The Holy Quran charges the Jews with taking the words of God and altering them out of their place and writing a book with their own hands and saying, this is the word of God. If God's word is not respected, how can my word or your word be respected if we speak truth in a society and under a government that has consistently and repeatedly lied to the American people? So when I stand up with truth in my mouth, it evokes fear in the minds and hearts of those who listen. Because when one lies and when one deceives, they are always afraid of the day of the manifestation of their evil. My presence among our people in America, and to Jews and Arabs and black people, is as a warner. And warners don't come, Miss Freeman, because things are right. Warners come because things are wrong. And when warners come, they rebuke and they condemn. It doesn't sound good, but the warner is not your enemy. The warner is your friend. He pleads with you in the name of God and for righteousness' sake to change your ways, because the way that America is going, Miss Freeman, she will not be a nation before too long. She is destroying herself by her own wickedness. As Rome decayed from within, Babylon decayed from within,
Farrakhan,
America is decaying from within.
If you care so much about America, then why have you repeatedly reinforced the thought of the Nation of Islam to secede from these United States and have your own state set up?
If Moses cared for Pharaoh, his job was to warn Pharaoh of Jehovah's anger, that Jehovah wanted Israel free from the bondage of Pharaoh to go out and make a nation for his glory. We do not believe that Israel fulfilled this 4,000 years ago, and there is no record to show that Jews were in bondage in Egypt for 400 years, but there is a record to show that black people have been in this country, in a strange land, among strange people, being afflicted in this country for 400 years. My plea to this government as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is, if you can't give us freedom, you won't give us justice, you won't allow us to be equal, then let us go to do something for ourselves. That is what God demands. That is not wicked against America.
Reverend Farrakhan, let me just go back to something you just said. You said there is no record of 400 years of bondage of the Jews in Egypt. There are some people today who would like us to believe that the Holocaust never happened.
Well, we know, Ms. Freeman, according to recent history, that Jews did suffer in Nazi Germany. We can't say that the Holocaust did not exist. We don't have any control of NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN to constantly tell our story. I don't mind hearing about the Holocaust because suffering is suffering. But if we could tell our story like the Jews tell their story, then your people would cry over our suffering as we have cried over yours. You lost 6 million, Miss Freeman, and we lost 100 million in the Middle Passage coming from Africa to America, where Arabs and Jews and Europeans and Africans and Americans were involved in that slave trade. And now today something has to be done because the suffering of black people is intolerable. It is unbearable. And if the Democratic Convention is going to be a charade of deceit and chicanery to placate the middle-class American or the bourgeoisie or the window-dressing Negro, then I fear that America will reap the same sad result that Pharaoh reaped, which was the destruction of his power and his authority to rule.
If in fact what happens at the Democratic Convention, in your opinion, what you just mentioned, if that happens at the Democratic Convention, will you vote? You had never registered before. Reverend Jackson was responsible for your registering to vote. It had been against the principles of the Nation of Islam to register to vote, but you did. Will you vote now?
May I say, Ms. Freeman, that I registered to vote because of Reverend Jackson, because I believe then and I believe now that he's a man of principle, that he will not sell black people out, and because I believe that he would stand up for justice for us. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said any man that would do that deserved and should get the full backing and complete support of our community. I registered to vote because I believe that some good can come out of the political process for black people and for those that are disenfranchised or for those that are locked out. However, I must in fairness say that Mr. Mondale to this point has not shown me the strength of a leader that can lead America in this critical hour. You know, Ms. Freeman, I believe that Jewish leaders are so hysterical over Louis Farrakhan that they're blindly asking men like Mondale and Hart and others, you must repudiate Farrakhan. You must repudiate Farrakhan. Mr. Mondale, like a trained SEAL, jumped out and repudiated Farrakhan. The White House was a little careful in their remarks. Mr. Hart, the same way, jumped out and repudiated Farrakhan. The Holy Quran says to us, when an unrighteous man brings you news, look carefully into it, lest you harm a people in ignorance, then be sorry for what you did. Mr. Mondale did not show respect for me or respect for black people by saying, let me see the context of what this man has said. And if I can determine that this man is a racist and a bigot and an anti-Semite, I most certainly will condemn him in the strongest terms. But for him to do so before even hearing my remarks, and then in the Dallas debate with Reverend Jackson, when Reverend Jackson asked him, did you hear Minister Farrakhan's remarks in context? Mr. Mondale said, no, he hadn't. Hart hadn't. So if Jewish leadership has a stranglehold on these men who are supposed to lead America, where will America go with weak-kneed, spineless men who cow down to pressure? Now, you said, Ms. Freeman, that we would secede, but Jewish leaders said if Mondale bowed to pressure to Jesse Jackson, that they would come out of the Democratic Party, take their money out, and join with Reagan. They should be careful. Blacks can do the same thing.
Minister Farrakhan, I am now going to an article from the New York Times. It's entitled On the Record.
Yes.
And these are from remarks that were made March 11th by you. And within the remarks, you're talking to black reporters. And within the context, you said, you already know what you want to write of me, so it don't really make any difference what I say. You already have a picture. Your editors have a picture of what they want Farrakhan to look like, especially your Jewish editors and Jewish writers. Is that not anti-Semitic?
No.
Why not?
No. Oh, Miss Freeman. You know, Jews stood on the opposite side of blacks on the Baki decision. They have their point. The aspirations of blacks to redress the grievance of 400 years of injustice was that some sort of quota should be maintained, that blacks might get into medical school, might get in here or get in there. Jews stood firmly against this for their own reasons. No black person yet said that Jewish people were anti-black because they were critical of our position, critical of our leadership, critical of our stand. Do you mean that Jews are so sacred that they do no wrong, that I cannot say that a Jew did this wrong, or Jews did that wrong, or Jews are immoral over here without being branded as an anti-Semite?
But you are lumping them all together.
Isn't this a sort of a racist kind of posture? Because the way I understand the definition of Semitism, Miss Freeman, is that a Semite are Jews and also Arabs. Now, if I'm accused of being pro-Arab and they're Semitic people, and anti-Jew and they're Semitic people, how then can I be anti-Semitic? I think that is a very false, malicious misuse of the term anti-Semitic. Now, let's put that statement in context.
All right, I'd like to do that, but I want to be able to have the opportunity and the time to do it properly. We have to take some commercial messages right now. In fact, we went way over time so that we wouldn't have to break up until now. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Stay with us. We took a long break in between so that we could have one long segment in the beginning. You were about to make a point and you wanted to be able to explain your point. Please go ahead, Reverend Farrakhan.
There was a young black reporter at the temple that Sunday from Newsweek magazine. She had told my assistant that Newsweek was doing a story. They were going to do it anyway, and so we wanted Minister Farrakhan to say a few words so that his words could be represented in the article. My anger was that they were going to do the story anyway. This young girl worked for Newsweek, and we know how Newsweek and Time operate. They have bureaus. So when I told her that your editors already know how I am to be framed, because that young girl, if I gave her a story, she has no control over the angle at which that story was to be written. That is decided by people other than herself. And I knew that. And sure enough, I gave her the tape of my speech on March the 11th, and I had to leave to go to another city, and that speech was used 2 days before the New York primary, not because they wanted to protect Milton Coleman, but they wanted to embarrass Reverend Jackson.
Well, let us go back to something you mentioned a moment ago, still trying to understand the discrepancies here between what is reported and what you say about your words being taken out of context and therefore not being understood. When we talked about the one comment of Judaism being a gutter religion, we played the tape for you. You said, no, that's wrong. I didn't say it was a gutter religion. I said it was a dirty religion.
No, I didn't say that either. I said I didn't use the word gutter. I used the word dirty. Now, taking that in context, the papers said, Farrakhan said, Judaism is a gutter religion. Farrakhan said, that should be quote, Judaism is a gutter religion. I am prepared to offer $100,000 and my life if CBS, the New York Post, or anyone can examine that tape and come up with the fact that I said that Judaism is a gutter religion. I could never make a statement like that and be a Muslim. All Muslims believe in God, believe in Moses, believe in the Torah, believe in the Injil brought by Jesus, and believe in the Quran brought by Muhammad. How could I, in good sound mind, condemn Judaism? But what I'm condemning is wicked practices using religion as a cover. The same thing was done with Christianity, and the same thing is done by some Muslims.
Because let me mention where I am confused here, and I'm sure a lot of people are confused here. For people who didn't see the earlier part of the program, they did not hear the audio tape. I think it's important to go back and to listen to it again, because what you told me at the time was that you didn't say gutter, you said dirty. But the word gutter came right before religion. So if we could, I would like to be able to go back and listen to that one more time.
But listen to the word rather than see what you have printed. Listen to what I said.
All right. Can we have that tape again, please?
Now that nation called Israel never have had any peace in 40 years, and she will never have any peace, because there can be no peace structured on injustice, thievery, lying, and deceit, and using the name of God to shield your dirty religion under his holy and righteous name.
You didn't say the word gutter. Are you saying that in that particular place where the word, it has been interpreted as gutter, you in fact said dirty?
Correct. But I never said Judaism. See?
You said Israel.
No, yeah, of course. Israel is not Judaism.
So what do you define as Israel? Most people today, when they think of Israel, think of Jews and think of Judaism.
There's a difference between persons who call themselves Jews and persons who live the life that was taught by Moses. Now, there are many people today who call themselves Jews, but there are just a few who live the life taught by Moses. The New Testament says the Jew is not the Jew outwardly, but the Jew is the Jew inwardly, and that is the person that submits to the will of God and carries into practice the teachings of Moses. There are not but a few of those.
I'm sorry, I've been distracted for the last 5 seconds because I've just been handed something that the Senate has just passed a resolution, and I will read to you as best I can from this copy because it is a bit difficult. This is in regards to the remarks to recent statements of Louis Farrakhan. Mr. Louis Farrakhan, close advisor to one of the presidential candidates, is reported to have referred to the Jewish faith as a gutter religion. Mr. Farrakhan has also accused the United States of being a criminal for our aiding and abetting role at the time of the creation of the Israeli nation. And Mr. Farrakhan has even called the very existence of Israel an outlaw act. Therefore, it is the sense of the Senate that there is no place in our society nor in our electoral process for hateful, bigoted expressions of anti-Jewish, Jewish, and racist sentiments such as those being made by Louis Farrakhan, and all such vicious expressions must be condemned. The leadership of the Senate is instructed to communicate with the chairman of the Democratic and Republican parties to request that they immediately repudiate in writing the sentiments and expressions of hatred made by Mr. Farrakhan, and it was passed in the Senate moments ago, 95-0.
Well, that's very nice, and there's not one black senator, is there? After we've been in this country for 400 years, you listen to me, and I want you to know, Ms. Freeman, that nothing that the United States Senate does frightens, disturbs, or bothers me. My repudiation of the Senate carries more weight with God than the Senate's repudiation of me. We helped you build this country. We worked this land. I just want you to listen. I hope the Senate is listening. Before you became a republic and had a Senate, 5,000 blacks fought in the Revolutionary War, Crispus Attucks being the first to die. We fought on Concord, Bunker Hill, there in Boston. After the Revolutionary Army got their freedom, they would not recognize the contribution of those blacks. The Civil War, the same way. Now here it is. These men condemn me of hateful, bigoted remarks, but they will not condemn the racism that pervades this country, of which the Senate is a prime body. Why are there not any black senators? Yet you say that representation or how is it, taxation without representation is tyranny, then we black people in America live under tyranny, and we black people in America will raise up our voices to repudiate the United States Senate, the United States Congress, the United States government, because it was the United States government under the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover that murdered and assassinated black leaders and destroyed black organizations. What did the Senate say, and what did the Senate do? It's this same Senate that appropriates money for the CIA to mine the harbors of Nicaragua and send troops into Grenada and do all of the wicked things that the Senate has backed around the world. I don't care 2 cents for the United States Senate's repudiation. I warn the Senate, and I warn the government, and I warn the president that America is headed down the drain. You better listen to this little black slave coming up from among you. My voice is the voice of God in your midst. And you are doing to me just what you did to all the prophets and those prophetic voices that rose up before me. You condemn Jesus, and the Roman Senate repudiated him. But today you worship him. What will you do for me tomorrow?
You had said that you will raise your voices. You said we will raise our voices up against the United States Senate, up against the United States Congress, and up against the United States. Raise our voices as you raised it now, or were you using that to mean something else?
Listen to black people.
I'm listening.
Tomorrow, go out on the streets and talk to the little man in the streets and see what they say about the Senate's repudiation of Louis Farrakhan. It's not worth the paper that it's printed on. Black people will not respond as you think they will respond. They love Farrakhan, and they will love me more. The more you fight against me, the more they will fight for me.
But you are seeing it as strictly a black and white fight.
You know, Mr. Koch said that tonight. It's not Jews and blacks, it's blacks and whites.
Is that how you see it?
That's how the Kerner Commission saw it. The Kerner Commission saw that America was moving toward 2 societies, one black, one white. The Kerner Commission gave specific recommendations to stop this. The Kerner Commission's recommendations have not been enforced, and you do have 2 societies in America, one black, one white, and a few Oreos all mixed up in between. But that's what you have, and the tensions are being exacerbated. Now, if Mr. Jackson has repudiated Brother Farrakhan, and those leaders of the Democratic Party feel that he has done what they wanted him to do, now the ball is in their court. What is the Democratic Party going to do for the black people, the brown people, the Arab Americans, the Native Americans, the Chicanos that are locked out of the democratic process? And by repudiating Farrakhan, do you solve the problems of America? Is Farrakhan the one guilty of polarizing the races? Is Farrakhan the one guilty of sowing the seeds of hatred and bigotry in the Senate and in the Congress, the germs of which is the Constitution, and the Constitution justified slavery? Did Farrakhan have anything to do with that? That's your hatred, America. That's your bigotry, America. But you want to put my condemnation of your wickedness on me. But the people see today.
But it would seem from the comments that have been attributed to you that the hatred is there, that it is directed towards Jews, and that it is very divisive. Reverend Jackson started out with wanting to have a rainbow coalition, and many people have suggested that because of some of the comments that you have made, it hurt his rainbow coalition, and therefore it never came to be.
Oh, Miss Freeman, Miss Freeman. Here again the victim is being charged with the crime. Jesse Jackson wanted to build a rainbow coalition. Jesse Jackson had the ability, and still does have the ability, to build that rainbow. There are powers in this country that don't want blacks and Mexicans and Chicanos and or Native Americans and Hispanics and Arabs and whites who are poor and locked out to come together. Jesse Jackson in New Hampshire was getting 18% of the Democratic vote according to pollsters, though there's less than 1% black in that state. When the Jaime remark was made known, and Reverend Jackson hedged on it and then confessed that he said it and apologized, his standing in the polls dropped from 18% to 8%, then to 6%. The Rainbow Coalition was being built. I had spoken in front of Reverend Jackson on several occasions. There were many reporters there. None could say that Farrakhan used any racially inflammatory language. But those in the press saw this black Muslim close to Reverend Jackson, and it was the press who brought up the language of the Nation of Islam from the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and threw that out to kill the budding Rainbow Coalition. Then they want to put the blame on Farrakhan. That's a shame. But that's the way the wicked do. They always throw the stone, hide their hand, then blame the victim. We live this every day. Kill a black man and say he had the knife. He's the one that attacked me.
But what remarks?
Whatever, Miss Freeman, that I say in truth, I stand on what I say. No one can make me back down from the truth of what I say. I don't care if the whole world repudiates me. That does not mean that what I say is incorrect. If you prove me incorrect, I humbly will submit that I am wrong and beg your forgiveness. But your condemnation of me does not make me wrong. This is the same old trick that has been tried with every black leader that has stood up for justice. Paul Robeson.
It's not a trick. It's trying to get to better understanding.
It is a trick. It is wicked, malicious devilishment on the part of leadership.
But Minister Farrakhan, this is a forum. It's a live program. No one is taking your words out of context.
No, they can't tonight.
No. So you can say what your thoughts are.
And that's why I appreciate, Ms. Freeman, the privilege and the honor of being on your show. I thank you for this privilege because I know that whatever I say today, that's what I said. Now, what the press may write about what I say tomorrow, I don't know. But what I said tonight is what I said, and I'll go before the world and stand on what I said, and no power in the world will buckle my knees on what I say as long as what I say is true.
Then perhaps we can get a very clear understanding this evening as far as your feelings towards the Jews.
Let me say this very humbly. You know, I have no hatred or animosity toward Jews. I have hatred and animosity toward exploitation, toward slavery, colonialization, or mind manipulation, toward deceit and chicanery. This is what I hate. And if you are a person of righteousness, you dislike those things too. And if I see that budding in a black person, I condemn it. If you see it in me, you have the right to condemn it. If I see it in a Jew, I have the right to condemn him without having to be called anti-Semitic. That's my point. I'm not hateful of Jews. I have great respect for Jews, but I do not have respect for wickedness. I don't care what you call it, if it's mine or yours or somebody else's.
But in most of the things that have happened since the March 11th sermon, time and time again, it goes back to a reference to the Jews. There was the Hitler remark that you made. And in many instances, only part of the remark was given. And perhaps to clear up the record this evening while we are speaking of it, it is important to give the entire, it won't be the entire sermon, but it certainly will put those statements into context. And I think that's important. Here come the Jews, don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. He wasn't great for me as a black person, but he was a great German. Now, I'm not proud of Hitler's evil against Jewish people, but that's a matter of record. He rose Germany up from nothing. Well, in a sense, you could say there's similarity in that we are rising our people up from nothing. But don't compare me with your wicked killers.
Those are my words exactly. I don't back down from one word that I spoke. Now, but that's not what the press said. The paper came out and said, Jackson Pal hails Hitler. That's not hailing Hitler. Farrakhan doesn't write books on Hitler, make movies on Hitler, parade Hitler memorabilia around the country. That's what you all do. Black people don't have any fascination with Hitler. It was George Wills who wrote in the Newsweek magazine, Our Fascination with Hitler. He's talking about white folks' fascination with Hitler. And George Wills said, as the study of disease begins with death, so the study of politics begins with Adolf Hitler. Those are not Farrakhan statements. Those are George Wills statements. I'm not an admirer of Hitler, but I do say he was great. Great is not synonymous with good. The Bible calls Babylon the great, but she's not Babylon the good. America is great, but America is not good. Hitler was great, but Hitler was not good. Those are my remarks. I stand on that.
Mr. Farrakhan, I want to go back to a question I posed to you earlier, and I didn't feel that I had a complete answer, and perhaps I'm looking for a shorter answer. You gave an explanation, but never really a yes or a no to me. Will you vote?
It depends, Ms. Freeman. I do not see in Mr. Mondale at this point the man that could save America. And Mr. Reagan seems bent on his course. I am very, very sad, Ms. Freeman, for what I see coming to this country. I am very, very sad. And America can put the blame on Farrakhan as the bigot and the hater and the anti-Semite. But it won't be too many more days, Ms. Freeman, before you will remember my remarks and you will remember my warning.
Excuse me, we have to take this last time out. We'll be back right after these words. We have only a few moments left. Minister Farrakhan, if I could ask you, the words that I hear you say are frightening words. Words like a warning, mark my words. What do you mean by those words?
I should hope that America would be frightened, because she should be. God is angry, and the time of the fulfillment of the prophet's predictions is now. America is headed into the heat of the Third World War, which is Armageddon, and that's just around the corner. And America could do better if she would. And I'm afraid that all of the wicked manipulations that are going on now, I don't think Mr. Mondale has the strength to turn America around. And I don't think Mr. Reagan will. It occurs to me, Ms. Freeman, that this may be the first time in history that a black man who has stood up for justice for black people has been so censured by all of the white leadership combined. And you know what that says, Ms. Freeman? It says that all the other black leaders who went before me, who were censured, their censure came from whites, but through blacks who were willing to be the agents of their condemnation. And now white folk have run out of black surrogates to do their evil, and they must come fully out themselves. I say this in deep humility. Your coming out against me is not really against me. It is against the truth, and it is against God. And
Mr.
we shall
Farrakhan,
see the results.
thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman.
Suggestion, almost a challenge, during the Freeman Report show Thursday night.
Go out on the streets and talk to the little man in the streets and see what they say about the Senate's repudiation of Louis Farrakhan. It's not worth the paper that it's printed on. Black people will not respond as you think they will respond.
Went to Harlem and unscientifically asked anyone we ran into what they thought about Farrakhan.
The same thing as I think of Martin Luther King.
He's filling people
with all these obscenities and all this off-the-wall mess, and he's trying to make race wars and everything that's totally unnecessary. People are trying to build and live in harmony, and he's trying to break it all up.
Those who were against Farrakhan were fewer than those who were for, and there was a lot of animosity towards the press and towards those who have criticized Farrakhan.
The Jews is not so interested in getting rid of Farrakhan. To my opinion, they really don't give a damn what Farrakhan say. They are at Jesse Jackson because Jesse Jackson is the man that can, and they're trying to knock his substances down.
And there were opposite opinions on how Jesse Jackson should deal with the Farrakhan controversy.
But Jackson had to cut him loose because he ain't gonna get no play if he don't cut him loose.
And Jesse, I'm telling you, stand up right now and let everybody know that you are not with these racist white folks and you are with Farrakhan.
It is hard to be neutral about someone as controversial as Louis Farrakhan, but a lot of folks in Harlem seem genuinely torn.
He made a mistake for saying the right thing at the wrong time.
He may be right. I won't say he's wrong, but you can't be always frank. You're going to hurt somebody.